When we talk about whiskey, we're quite literally talking about the water of. They say that it takes 50 litres of water, up to 50 litres of water, to make just 1 litre of spirit. So water is completely intrinsic, is utterly inseparable from the whiskey that we enjoy, and it becomes something that we continue to enjoy. So we're going to talk about the obvious things like adding water to whiskey and how do we add water, how much water do we add, and why should we do it. But before that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the production side and what the role water plays in that. And then after we do it, I'd like to have a wee experiment. I'd like to pour a few grams of the exact same whiskey, and the only thing I'm going to do differently is to add different water to each of them and see just how much of a difference it might make. I'm looking forward to it as always. I hope you are too, and I'll see you all in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to a clammy, sticky, weird, kind of humid summer Thursday night here in June in the vPub in the East End of Glasgow. I think it feels to me like we might get a wee bit of a thunderstorm later on, so we might have some water joining us in the background too. I hope you're well. I hope it's good where you are. I hope you're not having thunderstorms, and I hope you've got some comfortable weather. More than anything, I hope you've got your feet up and you've picked yourself a nice glass of the water of life to join us tonight for a wee ring-fenced downtime whiskey hangout. Thanks to everybody that's turned up live tonight. Thanks to everybody that's joining live. It really means a lot. But of course, if you're picking this up on the replay, like so many of you do, I'm very, very grateful. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to do what I always forget to do. And I'm always annoyed that I forget to do it because it does make a difference. If you do find that the vPub is legitimate whiskey content and you are enjoying yourself here, if you get something out of it, even if it's the brutality of the quiz at the end, maybe it's the camaraderie of the live chat that everybody enjoys here of a Thursday evening, whatever you take away, leave a wee like. Thank you very, very much. I do appreciate it. Phone in my face, I'll get that out of the way. We don't want any distractions. I need to focus on you guys tonight. This topic, believe it or not, has been on the vPub topic list, I think, for as long as there's been a vPub. When I first decided to start, let's say, trying to put some effort into bringing topics on the vPub and not just kind of rocking up and, I don't know, just kind of chatting and doing a kind of ad hoc live stream, kind of trying to make the content a wee bit more evergreen, I suppose. That's what I was attempting to do. And one of the topics that I wrote down was, why would anyone add water to whiskey? Why should we add water to whiskey? And the reason that I've not done it in 8 years is for two reasons. I think that back then, 8 years ago, there was a lot of kind of new excitement and new people participating in whiskey through the online community back then. And a lot of them, they really believed that the whiskey was presented in a bottle in a way that the master distiller or the master blender for that brand was presenting it at its optimal strength. That's what they believed. And why should they add anything to dilute it? They wanted to keep it neat and enjoy it the way it was meant to be. Of course, that's nonsense. And I think the vast majority of the online whiskey community understand why those things are nonsense. And hopefully we'll get to cover those a wee bit later tonight. So it's got a lot to do with the fact that I think the knowledge of our whiskey community generally over those 8 years has become much, much deeper. And I think people understand much more about adding water to whiskey. But the second reason was that I really couldn't imagine how I could cover an entire Thursday evening, a vPub session, just talking about adding water to whiskey. How are you going to do it? A teaspoon? You're going to do it with a bottle cap, a dropper, a jug, your fingers? What are you going to do? I couldn't see how it would But then I thought about, no, hold on, there's different types of water. There's different whiskies made with different types of water. Maybe that's an angle. And of course, we need to think about how water is part of the whiskey making process as well. So I decided, let's do it. Let's just go with it. I was inspired recently by being down in Campbelltown and just seeing the amount of water that was provided for everyone to drink along with their whiskies, bottles of water on tables, droppers and jugs and things put on all the tasting tables. Constantly talking about water, making sure that we had water with us at all times. This thing that water and whiskey is they're just so inextricably linked. And then, of course, I heard that a lot of distilleries were closing because we had good weather in Scotland recently. And they weren't closing down, they were simply having to stop production because of very, very low water levels. And in fact, when we were in Campbelltown, I heard that Ardnamurchan had stopped production because of low water. So it put water right back in my radar once more. And I thought, okay, let's tackle it. So that's what we're going to tackle tonight. I'm going to try and keep it light, not too geeky. I'm going to try and keep it fun. And like I say, I'm going to, while we do this, I've got 3 bottles here that have been sitting around looking for a good excuse to get uncorked. And I've worked out that one's a hard water distillery, one's a soft water distillery, and the other one we're a bit less sure about, but we're going to use that and we're going to let that play a role in this evening for a wee bit of an experiment towards the end. That's the general plan for the vPub tonight. I hope you're all comfy. Before we go on with everything, let's do what we always do while we're getting comfy. Jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Welcome everyone. Cheers. Good stuff. How are we all? Remember, if you're trying to get my attention, just type aqua vitae. Make sure it's spelt with a V. And whether it's at aqua vitae or just aqua vitae, it should light up orange. And I can say hello, like I'm just about to say hello to Max Crichton. Good evening, buddy. Looking forward to a diluted vPub. Hopefully it'll be diluted in the right ways. Max, good to have you, buddy. How's Christina? Sugar Kitty is here saying 32 degrees C and extra humid here in New Jersey today. Sounds like our weather is not too far off from yours. It is. It was quite bright and a little breeze today. It was a pretty nice day, I have to say, generally speaking, but it started raining now, and that air is really thick and humid and still and clammy. You've got that weird almost kind of pinkish orangey light outside, which suggests that we could probably do with a wee bit of a storm to clear things. Mike Molasses is saying, unfortunately, all I'll be having tonight is water, oh dear, on a course of meds that prohibit alcohol consumption. Still here for what I think will be an interesting topic and the company. Well, you've found a way to be on theme, Mike, but that's a wee bit of a shame, my friend. I hope you mend well and fast, and that the meds course isn't too long and it doesn't keep you from your occasional dram, buddy. Good to have you in all the same. Thank you for joining us regardless. Rick Johnson is saying good afternoon from a foggy San Francisco, Roy, and fellow barflies, ready for a watery discussion. Nice to have you, buddy. Hope you're well, Rick. Danny Keenan is saying good evening, Roy, Aquavita and the barflies. Hope you're all well. I'm Danny. Wonderful to welcome you here, buddy. I hope you're doing well. I saw that you were out for a couple of drams with cousin Kevin recently. It looked like great fun. And Gian dramming around. That's Gian Luigi. Good to see you, buddy. Saying Aquavita final, watching one live after some time. Busy period, but tonight enjoying a delicious ex-bourbon Aberlour Slancher. Good to have you in, Gianluigi. I hope Teresa is doing great as well. Fantastic, my friend. There's a great wee blog out there that's written by Teresa and Gianluigi out there called Dramming Around. So if you just search Dramming Around Whiskey blog on Google, you'll get to catch up on what those guys are up to. Italians currently residing in Scotland. MJ Rodden is here saying, evening, Roy. Finished up work and off to Provence and some wine, but tonight the kids are sleeping with a 58.2% Smoz Williamson. So that'll be a single malts of Scotland, Lefroy. Good for you, 58.2%. The cast strength sounds amazing. It definitely needs water, says MJ. Well, good. So MJ, you're no stranger to looking at the strength, having a wee sip and things like that, and adding a wee bit of water if you feel it can improve things, right? Philip Stories in. Philip, good to see you. Whiskey is simply water made more drinkable. It's not a hard choice for me. You're absolutely right, Philip. Great way to think about it. Kiwi Gore is saying, have a great night. I'll watch on replay tonight. Just dropping in to celebrate being a member of the Barflies for 37 months. So Kiwi Gore and all the other Barflies out there on the channel, I've signed up on YouTube as a YouTube member for $1.99, and they get access to all those loyalty badges, channel themed emoji and things like that. But the biggest thing is, I keep saying every week, you keep the vPub completely ad-free, and I never need to share any revenue through ads with Google, or they never need to share any with me, depending on how you look at it. Barflies take care of that. Thank you so much for your support, all of you. Gary Field is saying, I'm doing White Peak Distillery Tour at the end of the month. I was chatting to somebody very, very recently about that, actually, on direct messages. Come back to me. Come on, who was it? Regardless, they were very, very positive and said they had a fantastic time down there and encouraged me strongly to go. It's been on the cards for a long time, Gary. I will get down there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it's all about. Let us know how you get on, won't you? Nice to have you in, Gary. George is here. George L. from Arizona saying, looking forward to tonight's watery topic. All beer brewers are water geeks. You're a beer brewer yourself, George. Nice to have you in tonight, buddy, and I'm glad you're excited for the topic. Arnie Tiger is saying, I use water every time I have a whiskey moment. You know, there's a lot of people like that. I'm not so disciplined. If I'm on the sofa, and it's a wee bit frustrating sometimes because you're sitting there sipping something and you know that it could probably do with a wee spot of water, but there's no water at hand, so you just sit and you drink it neat, right? But some people really do. It's a bit of a ceremony for them, and they are quite meticulous. Hillswood is here saying, good evening, Roy. Helen and Andy's last ever vPub while they live in Englandshire, right? When they're down in Milton Keynes right now. But this in the coming days ahead, they'll make their migration flight north to Scotland, and they'll end up living on the Kintyre Peninsula. I'm sure I've wished you luck many times, guys. It's wonderful to have you in. I hope it goes well. Maybe we'll see you back here next week. Timothy H is saying, good morning from Australia, dark and early, 0 degrees here, just filled up with some eggs Balmoral, about to pour some Bunnahabhain Moyne Cognac finish from my Warehouse 9 hand fill, take home bottle. Fantastic. What a breakfast that is. Fantastic stuff, Timothy. Wonderful to have you in, my friend. It's nice to see you getting into the spirit of things despite the ridiculous time difference. Arnie, Doodle the Dramas in saying, Aqua Vitae, so nice to settle in with you and the great Barflies again tonight. Water is a constant companion when I'm enjoying my drams. Playing with water and air is a bit of control at home, and it's magic. Glad you're enjoying it. Air is also a massive component. Letting the thing breathe, giving it a bit of time, whether it's in a bottle, whether it's in your glass. It's amazing how much more we're rewarded when we're patient with whiskey, really. It's not possible to do it all the time, but when you're in your own environment, it's pretty easy, right? Whiskey with Molly Ben. Good evening, Roy. Aqua Vitae, the wee tune, now ticked off the bucket list with 2 great whiskey pals. A great time had by all Slanship. Fantastic. I'm glad. I was wondering when you were back, wondering how it went. That's with Lee J and Jim Whiskey Novice from the Whiskey Novice YouTube channel. 3 Musketeers down there in Campbelltown. I'm sure you did have an absolute blast, and I look forward to hearing all about it. Tobias is saying, good evening, Roy Aqua Vitae, already here. Little water jug and syringe at hand. Fantastic, Tobias. I actually forgot my wee water jug tonight, but I don't think we'll need it. I've got all sorts of accoutrements here. Graham Fraser saying, good evening, Roy Aqua Vitae. Barflies from Falkirk after an afternoon searching out 2 lost distillery sites. You're always on some kind of whiskey adventure or pilgrimage, Graham. I look forward to catching up with how you got on in the Barflies page on Facebook, buddy. Fernando's saying, Aqua Vitae, it's nice to hear bottles being uncorked. Love the pop and the gloop. I love to do it. I love to do it. We don't need to uncork bottles on the vPub every week, but I think, yes. Otherwise, I just accumulate bottles and they seem to wait a long time for that special moment, right? I think the vPub is as good a moment as any. I've got 3 tonight. I'll tell you what they are in a wee second, Fernando, before we even get started tonight. I'll tell you in advance. Ian Williamson is saying, evening, Roy, and all you lovely Barflies. Muggy down here in Telford today too, hoping for a storm to clear the air a little. That's what we need here, Ian. Good to have you in. Overland Rams is saying, evening, amigo, from a cool, unseasonably wet Colorado. Well, I'm sure in Colorado you don't mind getting an occasional downpour to top up the water levels, buddy. I hope it's okay. And Danny Hevington's bought me a dram. Thank you very much, Danny. Good evening, Roy, saying, I don't dabble in water in my drams very often, but I'm a believer in enjoying it how you like it. Let's kick off with that, Danny. There's a few other comments and things like that, but I'll try and interact with you as much as I can tonight. I've got a wee Glengoyne 10 in the glass tonight. It's often said in whiskey that whiskey should be consumed exactly how you want to consume it. Enjoy whiskey the way you like it, and that's the best way for you to drink whiskey. As I've done in the past, I'll do it again just now. I have an issue with that mentality because it's okay to continue to enjoy anything in life the way that you enjoy it. Of course, that's pretty obvious, and we should absolutely encourage that. There should be no shade, there should be no kind of judgment, all of that kind of thing. But it also kind of leans towards a wee bit of a closed mind mentality. No, this is how I like it, and this is the right way, therefore, for me to enjoy this. Whereas if you open up your mind a little bit, you can taste different whiskies, you can have different styles and categories of whiskey, you can try different spirits, you can try different cask maturation, and you can try all of these things served in different ways. Wouldn't it be boring if we only ever ate eggs cooked one way? Somebody needs to come along and teach us, like Sevi did when we were down in Campbelltown, soft-boiled egg spread over avocado and sourdough bread with balsamic vinegar could be absolutely face-meltingly good, and it was. Never had it before. I'm guaranteed I'm going to have it again. So it takes somebody else to kind of suggest, oh, why don't you try just a teaspoon of water in that whiskey? Really kind of opens it up in the glass right in front of your eyes. Why don't you try? That's a brilliant thing. Throw in some ice, pour over some, soda water, some whatever mixer you want. And say just that makes a really, really lovely mixed drink. It's not for everyone, but it might be for you. You only know that it's not for you until you try it. So yes, it is true to say whiskey the way you like it, Danny, absolutely. That is more true once you've tried it other ways. So it's worthwhile keeping an open mind, I think. Anyway, that's just my wee philosophy, and it always has been. The reason I've put a Glengoyne in the glass tonight, it's a Glengoyne 10-year-old. There's a lot of water already in this glass. This is served at 40% ABV. I used this for a recent vPub act. I don't remember which one, but I haven't sipped much out the bottle. It's just kind of been put back on the shelf and not really used for much at all. It's very easy to sip neat. It's very easy to not consider or touch water when you pour a glass of this at 40% ABV. Maybe that's its design. However, Glengoyne 10 was the whiskey, the first ever bottle of single malt Scotch whiskey I purchased, September 2005. The famous Luca story that everyone knows by now. But this is the bottle of whiskey that I took as a souvenir from that shop. And I remember going home with the bottle and a Glengoyne. I still have it to this day. It's not handy unless it's behind me. Is it behind me? The Glengoyne water jug? No. I've got my clay Duff water jug here. I've got a black Glengoyne water jug that I bought on that day. The old branding of Glengoyne. And I used to sit with a pour of 40% 10-year-old Glengoyne, 50% whiskey, and 50% of my own added water. When I first got into whiskey, sipping it at home and playing with and learning about whiskey and things like that, I was finding the heat of the spirit a bit hot. I got over that in a matter of days, if memory serves. But I remember the first few pours from the bottle, I was drowning quite heavily in order to kind of learn the flavors and adjust to a neat spirit. But as soon as you get used to neat spirits, you very quickly move on, and 40% can very quickly taste, pardon the pun, sometimes a wee bit watery, to whiskey enthusiasts at least. People that are not used to drinking neat spirits would pick up this 40% Glengoyne 10 and consider it quite hot. So it's not just about the whiskey and the moment and the environment. It's got so much to do with the person and where they are on their whiskey exploration preference journey, right? For me, I'm sipping this now. It's the first dram of the night. I didn't have any whiskey last night. I didn't have any whiskey on Tuesday night. I was out at the whiskey club on Monday night. So the last whiskey I had was Monday night. So this is tasting nice. There's nothing beefier, stronger, heavier, weightier, richer, nothing to compare it against. This is the first dram of the night, first dram in a few nights. So I'm sipping this and quite enjoying it. But I have to say that the finish is remarkably short. And if I do try and sit with it to get a lot of palate connection, there's not a lot of body there. There's not a lot of weight at 40%. On the nose, though, the nose is fantastic. You know, there's lots to pick out on the nose. And I think that's a lot of problems with these 40% ABV whiskies. For me, as an enthusiast, they can often promise a lot on the nose, and then the palate can just be that wee bit flat, wee bit insipid, or a wee bit light. It's just the way it is. 40% whiskies bottled in the way that this Glengoyne 10 has been is not really aimed at us. That doesn't mean that we can't get enjoyment out of it. Now, would we add water to this whiskey? This is a topic I'm going to get onto later tonight. Would we add water to it? Well, I would not. I'm going to do the Ralphie here. I've taken a wee teaspoon of water, just a half teaspoon here, and I'm going to Ralphie this wee Glengoyne 10. What I have done is I have diluted this whiskey. Of course I have. But there's chemistry happening right now. I wanted there to be a reaction. The glass, I'm not going to fake it. I'm not picking up much of a difference here. I'm getting a nice kind of butterscotch toffee caramel where there's original candy type note, that type of thing. But I was probably going to get that if I searched for it before I put water in. But sometimes what you can do when you add a wee bit of water, it's not just about dilution and bringing the ABV down and bringing the alcohol down. Sometimes what we're doing to add water to the whiskey is to waken it up. It's not like water has been added at the bottling hall or water has been added at some point in the whiskey's life before, reduction water or whatever, and been left to marry and become part of the whiskey. What we're doing when we add water at home is an instant burst of it's a chemical reaction. We're throwing that water in, and you can really, really taste it. You can nose it. You can feel it on a lot of whiskies, whereas it might have been a bit flat or a bit closed or a bit tight or a bit locked or a bit high or a bit sharp or a bit jaggy or a bit something. And a wee bit of water just brings it alive. Sometimes it softens it and calms it down. Sometimes it accentuates some notes and tames others. That's the fun of adding water. Only put a tiny wee bit of water in that. This is probably a 25 ml pour, I would say. And I think I put about maybe 2.5 mils in from that teaspoon there. So it's not a lot of water going into it, but I can taste a wee difference. It doesn't, interestingly, I don't think it tastes a wee bit waterier without tasting any lower in ABV. I hope that makes sense. But it does taste a wee bit like I've got some more top notes, some more kind of crispness and florality at the top end. The only way I can know for sure is to have kept one and sit backwards and forwards. I don't think there's a need to do that. We'll get a chance to do that throughout tonight. I'm going to share with you the bottles I'm going to go uncork tonight. And we're going to be very deliberate tonight and do what we don't always do in the vPub. You'll notice that almost everything I uncork and go in with for my first impressions, I already fill 3 hours nearly sometimes without kind of doing the process again by adding water. So it's always caveated with the fact that it's a neck pour, first impression, neat straight into the glass, that type of thing. It's very rare that you'll see me adding water. Sometimes I do it live on the vPub, but generally not. But we will do it tonight for everything that we uncork, which is why I'm keeping it just to 2 or 3 bottles tonight. Anyway, let's share with you what they are. Firstly, I'm going to go soft water, hard water, not sure. Okay. First one from Glasgow Distillery. This is from a cask that is normally my whiskey kryptonite. This is from a wine cask. Constantia. This is Constantia. A marriage of 3 casks. It's got the numbers here. An unpeated single malt matured in a first fill ex-bourbon before finishing in South African Constantia dessert wine casks for 1 year and 10 months. Fantastic transparency, as we've come to become accustomed to from Glasgow. They've got some taste notes and things on here. This is a batch of 980 bottles. This is a higher amount of outturn than some of these small batches. Some of these small batches are really quite small, in the low hundreds, but 980 on this is good. All natural colour, non-chill filtered, fantastic. 56.6% ABV. And I believe the source water from Glasgow to be Loch Katrine, which feeds most or quite a chunk of the Central Belt, as well as Glasgow generally. The Southern Highlands area of the Trossachs, just north of Glasgow. A national park. Loch Katrine is a massive loch there. One of Scotland's biggest, one of Scotland's longest lochs, and that's the water supply for us here. It is typically soft water. Almost all of Scotland is soft water. So we're going to uncork this tonight, and we're going to give it a wee appraisal, a wee neck pour, a wee first impression, see how I get along with a wine cask, and we'll add a wee bit of water and see how it affects it. Then we're going to go to, now there's a few, generally speaking, as I say, all of Scotland is soft water, but there are a few kind of pockets, depending on the water source and how that water's being collected. There might be some calcium deposits in there. There might be some magnesium. There might be some minerals that harden the water and make it a kind of moderately soft, medium, or hard water. And famously, Glenkinchie, Glenmorangie, there's some others that have hard or slightly harder water sources. But I've gone down south for this one. This is from the Cotswolds distillery. I used to live down here, just south of the Cotswolds, and we had to treat our tap water where we lived because it was so hard that it could scale up pipes and taps and sinks and equipment and things. So we would treat it. And that meant that it gave it a taint. It had a taint on it untreated, and it certainly had a taint after being treated. Water softeners and things like that, if you're going to drink post-water softener, it's not very nice, in my opinion. So hard water can be pesky, but for making whiskey, it can have its advantages. So I don't know for sure, I should say, whether or not the Cotswolds water source is hard, particularly hard, moderately hard, somewhere in between, or perhaps even a wee bit soft for some English sites, but I've just gone down there. And the reason I've picked up this one is that I was visiting Cotswolds recently. I managed to have some food there, dropped by for a wee visit and things, and this is a souvenir I picked up and brought away with me. I think it was about £80, going from memory, I don't remember. 2,500 bottles of this. This is their bourbon cask at 59.1% ABV. So in theory, we've got a whiskey here that could potentially, maybe, have been made with hard water. We don't care. We're just going to uncork these things and enjoy them. And then finally tonight, we're going to finish off with a whiskey that's made with potentially a soft and hard water mix. This is a borehole on the west coast of Scotland. This is Ardnamurchan. And they're taking it from their own source, from their borehole there. We've often guessed it in the past. Part of the reason that, for me, Ardnamurchan has this kind of outdoor quality, this mineralic quality, especially expressive in its ex-bourbon, refill bourbon type products. Love it, absolutely love it. Sometimes it can come across a wee bit like slate and pebbles and limestone, sometimes seashells, sometimes rock pools, sometimes salinity. I just love it. It's one of the most compelling things in Ardnamurchan spirit for me. But I don't know if that borehole is particularly hard in the scale of water. But what happens with Ardnamurchan is that it's shipped away from the west coast down to the bottling plant in Dunfermline, which is far more likely to have a soft water source for bottling, the reduction water. However, they may use sourced demineralized water. They may use, what is it they call it, reverse osmosis or something like that. I should have done my research, but it matters not. I was still going to use this whiskey for this reason. because we don't always know. We can't always know. It's not going to be written on the packaging or the bottle. It's not necessarily a part of the whiskey enjoyment that we need to know. But what I thought would be nice is to use this expression of Ardnamurchan. This is the new Midgie. I showed it up to the camera, I think, last week or the week before. This is now got a name. I think it's Myrtle McKitchie, and it's been named. This Midgie, drawn by Arnie Doodle the Dram, the barfly himself. Absolutely adore it. I love it. It's even better on the bottle. But I'm going to get this uncorked tonight, and this is going to be our experiment whiskey. We're going to have a neat pour. We're going to have a pour with soft water, hard water, plain old Glasgow Council juice tap water, and we'll maybe have a play with something else as well. We'll see how our mood is at the end of tonight. And that's the 3 bottles I'm going to uncork with you. Dooder Court is in. Good to see you. Mike is saying, if I don't have any fancy spring water, can I substitute it with iron brew? Let's go back to our pal Danny's comment from earlier when he was talking about have it the way you want. Whiskey and iron brew is absolutely a thing, Mike. And now that you're a Scottish resident, you have to do it at least once to decide whether it's something you like. I can't talk about being open-minded and then not be open-minded. It's not my preference, but it's been a while since I've enjoyed drinking iron brew, if I'm honest. Let's talk whiskey. Kevin, Cousin Kevin is here. Distilleries always show you their barley. I usually try it. Do you think it'd be a positive gain to let you try the water source as well? I don't know if they need to let you try it, but they could tell you what they believe their water source is. Oh, because they will absolutely tell you that it's only the finest. It's very, very pure. It's very, very this. It's very, very that. But it'd be nice to know, is it a hard water source? Is it soft water? Is it acidic? Is it alkaline? Is it? Where's it from? That type of thing. Just for the geeks, I suppose. But I don't think it's that necessary. Doodle Dram is saying the biggest effects of water so far I've found in more spirit-driven whiskies. I have 2 different refill Glenelgans, and they truly wake up with water and reveal a waxiness and a texture. And what's interesting is that it depends on how much. It's why we like to do the silly wee drops with a tiny little water dropper, right? And then maybe a wee bit more with a repurposed straw, so we can use that, a teaspoon, whatever, and we can work out what whiskies do well with a bit more dilution and what whiskies wake up with just a couple of drops, like your Glenelgans, Arnie. Sugar Kitty saying, according to Master of Malt, Ardna is then reduced with spring water from Glenmore. So that's their water source, which would be down, I would imagine, down at the bottling plant. Thank you, Sugar Kitty, for doing the research where I should have. Alistair McPhail is saying, good evening, morning, afternoon, aqua vitae, and everyone, just popping in for a wee while. Another great subject for a vPub. Nice to have you, Alistair, ever so briefly. Nice to have you dropping in. Hope you'll pick us up on the replay, buddy. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram, and he said, the door in my mind has been opened by everyone I talk to about whiskey, Mr. Duff, but I'm not going to rip the door off its hinges and set it on fire. No, I think that's a canny philosophy. It's all very well being open-minded, but we don't want to be so open-minded that we're just naive, right? We take any old thing in. But we've kind of got to be... We can't decide we don't like stuff when we've not even tried it. There's a good chance that we know we're not going to like certain things, right? But we've had some dalliances. We've moved close towards it. We've tried it out in concept or whatever. Anyway, don't want to get philosophical, buddy. Thank you very much for the dram, Jimmy Legg. Hey, it's nice to have you in as always, buddy. And David Hong has bought me a dram as well. He's a silent donator. He doesn't always make a comment, does David? But he's bought me a generous dram as well. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Jimmy Legg. And thank you, David Hong. Cheers to you all. I have to be honest, this is just a objectively nice, elegant little glass of whiskey. Not challenging in any way, not distracting, but quite easy to sip and enjoy. Jeffrey Bangers is saying, I wonder if Altmore has hard water. The 12-year-old always strikes me as being mineralic if I left it in the glass for a bit. Yeah, that's right. And I think we need to be careful of maybe assuming that mineralic whiskies tend to be from a hard water source, because I can find, soft, juicy, fruity whiskies alongside quite mineralic whiskies that are from the exact same distillery, very similar profiles and things like that. Certain casks will express a wee bit more of the mineralic side, whereas other ones will tend to maybe show a bit more fruity or other traits from the exact same spirit. Jimmy Legacy, my whiskey will never see orange juice, for example. Roddy is a true madman. I've never heard Roddy mixing it with orange juice. Never heard such a thing. Wow. Whiskey with Molly saying, I believe that water used to dilute whiskey before being bottled could have an impact, but not the source water. We're going to cover that ever so briefly. Duracourt is saying, if you're too open-minded, your brain will fall out. Cheers, Mike. Danny is saying, generally on my first pour, I'll drink it as it is. Then the second dram, I'll add a few drops of water to see how it changes. So that's a good wee policy, a good wee process to go through if you can be bothered with it, and if you have water on hand, absolutely. Most of the time that we're drinking whiskey, we're sitting at a table, and there's not really much of an excuse not to have some form of water at hand. And in fact, there's an argument that you should absolutely have water on hand, at the very least, just to drink from time to time. If you've got that, that means that you've got water on hand to dilute your whiskey. If it's good enough to drink, it's good enough to drop into whiskey, right? Anyone still get bottles of Octomore spring water from their Laddie drams? I don't know. Was there Octomore spring water from? That would be from Octomore Farm or something then. I've never heard of that. I never saw those. And Alex T is saying, greetings, aqua, vitae, and all the barflies. Alex T, I hope I've welcomed you here before, buddy. If it's the first time, it's nice to have you here. If I've welcomed you before and forgotten, I do apologise. But absolutely, as Ben says, there is source water. There is 50 litres, I said, it's just like this number that's always been around. In order to have one bottle, 1 litre of whiskey, it's going to take about 50 litres of water in order to produce that. But of course, they're not talking about the water that goes into the whiskey. They're talking about all of the water used in the production. So it's production water and it's process water. So production water would tend to be the water that you would use for steeping barley, for example. It would be the water that's absolutely used for mashing in. You need to have liquid to ferment and then to go into a still, and that needs to be a certain mass of liquid. And the reason that the way that you change that grain into that mass of liquid is by adding lots and lots of water, and that gets done at the stage of mashing. So that's why there's a lot of story, a lot of whimsy, and they talk about the water source at distillery tours and things. Maybe they don't talk about whether it's hard or soft. Sometimes they might. But generally, it's just to get it into your head that water is basically what's being used here. But there's much more water being used on the process side as well. And that's for either heating. So, for example, any distillery that uses steam, for example, steam coils, heating and things like that. Absolutely. But there's lots of water that's used for cooling. Obviously, there's a lot of heat generated in making and distilling whiskey. So especially when you're at the condensation side of the production process, whether it's through shell and tube, or whether it's through a good old-fashioned traditional big worm tub, these things have to be filled and continually filled with cold or cool water. The process water that's used for steam and is used for heating and condensing and all of these things, we're not going to taste that. The only way we're going to taste that is that the colder the water is, the less copper interaction there is on that condensing side, the less discussion that happens between the spirit and the copper. So that would tend to encourage a heavier spirit character. We talked about this in various worm tub discussions in the past. That is really the only way that we can affect the flavour using the process water. Production water, that's a more interesting one to talk about. But I put it to you that the steeping water, the way that we add or get all that moisture into the grain, the way that we prepare that grain to trick it into thinking it's about to be germinated, you know, by the time we steep and drain and and spread that out, or by the time it's kilned, there's still moisture, measurable moisture in the grain, of course there is, but at the point of milling, that grain is bone dry. So whether you think that that's going to have an impact on the grain itself to change the flavour, but whether it's any kind of leftover flavour impact from the water that's used from steeping, it's kind of a stretch in my layman's mind. Then if you go into the mashing stage, that's much more critical to me, I think. My friend Gus has sent me some spark notes, as he called them. And he suggested that harder water with a higher, I think it was maybe calcium or magnesium, I should have checked, can be good for mashing. It can help the health of the yeast. It can be something that is desirable to have slightly harder water. But again, that's a bit of an odd one for me as well, when the vast majority of Scotch whisky distilleries only have soft water available. But mashing for me is going to be critical, because all the liquid that we're going to ferment and all the liquid that we're going to distill is going to come from that mash water. So when we mash those grains, when we cook those grains, when we're doing our mashing in, and what eventually is filtered through that bed of after the mashing process, that wort that's going on to the fermentation process, that sweet liquid called wort, all of that liquid is from the water that we've introduced from the distillery's water source. So to me, that makes some sense that that should have a significant impact on the character of the wort. Now, how much of that is going to remain intact through the process of fermentation, and how much of that is going to remain intact through the process of distillation through the wash still, distillation through the spirit still, maybe a triple distillation in some cases, we don't know. But does it matter? It's wonderful to recognize that the whiskey somehow tastes different from other whiskies. Ever so slightly often, but different enough to make us favour it over other distilleries, or perhaps prefer it less. Water has got to be part of that discussion, surely. How much? I don't really know. SWA targets much, much less than 50 litres. SWA are trying to get it down to 12.5 to 25 litres. They're trying to half it at least by 2025, by this year. How they're getting on with that, and what processes and things they're putting in place, or what processes they're asking the distilleries, I suppose it's maybe just their member distilleries, I don't know, in order to try and get that water consumption down. It's all part of the environmental impact, no doubt. I'm not sure. But their target is to reduce the water consumption to between 12.5 and 25 litres by the end of this year. No idea how they're getting on there, but it gives you an idea just how much water is required to make a bottle of our whiskey. Ryan Sutherland is in. Good to see you, buddy. Aqua Vitae, we soften, just to let you know, Ryan Sutherland is obviously the distiller up at 8 Doors Distillery, right at the very top of the country. He's saying we soften from our borehole to feed process and cooling water, and soften again for all boiler water. More of a correction from the borehole to ensure we're at preferred hardness. Okay, so there is some quite significant conditioning going on there. Jimmy Legg is saying, if there is one organism I care about the health of, it's yeast. Not just for whiskey, of course, Jimmy, right? Duracourt is saying it's an interesting thought, because I suspect Japan has quite hard water. I wonder if they still stick to the Scottish soft water, though. Well, I wonder, yeah, I don't know so much about Japan, whether it's hard right across the islands, right? But for here, we have a mixture of water profiles, but generally in Scotland, I've looked at quite a few maps, and it seems to get up to the northeast. You can have some kind of mildly hard water in northeast of England, but everything north of the northeast, you've just got this single colour, generally considered soft water in Scotland. Ryan is saying pH is key at mashing, but hardness, calcium, alkalinity, etc. can all alter enzyme activity adversely, but sometimes help and the fermentation. Super interesting. Big balancing act, I imagine, then, no doubt. Ian Bruce is saying, any Scottish distilleries using desalination aqua vitae? None in my knowledge. None. Generally, I mean, we can have water shortages in Scotland, but the climate that we have here, I don't know of any desalination plants in Scotland. That's my ignorance, though, Ian. I really don't know if we have such a thing. Maybe we do somewhere. Anyway, I've welcomed you all in with my wee Glengoyne. What will we go with first? The wine cask, the bourbon cask? Let's go with the Cotswolds. Let's go with the hard water one first. Or what I'm guessing is potentially made with hard water. And it might be a case that if the water at the Cotswolds is too hard, they might be doing an 8 doors, a Ryan Sutherland's, as he commented there. And they might be conditioning the water in order to get it to a better, more preferable hardness level. I'm going to be pouring small drams tonight because the experiment that I have at the end of tonight, potentially I'm going to have to pour 3 or 4 just to taste them backwards and forwards. But I'll keep them all quite small. And I've got my wee measure tonight, and it's not because I'm pretty good measuring or pouring by eye, but I'm going to do it the same for all the pours that I pour out tonight. I'm going to pour, oh, that's a nice noise, come on. I'm going to pour a 25 ml measure for each of the drams. And in your average Glencairn, that's what a 25 ml measure looks like. Most pubs pour a 25 ml measure in the UK and in Scotland. Good bars, good whiskey bars such as the Bonaccord, the Pot Still, other places pour a 35 ml, which is nice. So when you're comparing prices in the pubs, always remember that it depends on the measure. Like I say, I don't remember what I paid for this. I think it was in the order of 70 or 80 quid, I think, going from memory. But the reason I wanted to buy it is that I was down at Cotswolds Distillery visiting at Easter time with my brother. I was the driver that day, so I couldn't partake while we visited the distillery. But the one I'm going to reach for all the time is likely to be the bourbon cask. Made from selected first fill American oak, bourbon casks, patiently aged and bottled at full cask strength. I've looked around this, and from what I can see, it's obviously a marriage of casks, but there isn't an age statement on this one. I would suspect, and from my experience of Cotswolds, we're in the realms of 4, 5, 6, and 7 years old. But potentially the age that they're at now, things could be quite easily, comfortably a wee bit older. I've been quite impressed by what Cotswolds have been able to pull off. Not just the special editions, the cask strength releases and things like that, interesting casks and everything. They've got lots and lots of whiskey out there. But they've also got their standard signature release, which they're able to get into a lot of supermarkets at a very affordable price, typically in the order of £35, £39, sometimes a wee bit cheaper. But the amazing thing is that they've been able to do it and kept naturally presented. Despite the non-age statement, there's often vintages on the labels of Cotswolds, of course, but it's 46% ABV on chill filtered whiskey, which is a fantastic thing to pull off. Let's have a wee nose of this thing neat, straight out the bottle, absolute neck pour, no judgment, scoring, no significant review, just first impressions. Really bright, really vivid. Coming off the Glengoyne, we're getting the benefits of the higher ABV here, 59.1% ABV, and it's really quite bold. My nose is giving me kind of lime green, juicy fruit aromas. Lots of orchard, sweet orchard though, going on for maybe a little bit of a kind of maybe unripe stone fruit, that type of thing. A little bit of toffee and caramel too, a little bit of vanilla toffee caramel, a little bit of cream coconut, all coming from that bourbon cask. And the base notes here are kind of leaning towards a milky malt, like a soft, fondant, Ovaltine maltiness. I need to be better than that. I need to be better. Sorry, apologies. Not like Maltesers, like a creamier thing. Creamy malt, let's go with that. Quite coconutty. There's these kind of iced gems type things that we have in the UK. These other biscuits that we get with a fondant on top, like a marshmallow that's coconut on top. And the malt and the sweetness is kind of reminiscent of that. So you can see that this is quite a sweet whiskey on the nose, but not too sweet. There's quite nice tartness and acidity from the kind of fruity side of things. It's a pleasant thing to nose. Everything is dialed up. Everything is easy to access. Everything is quite vivid. Let's have a wee sip neat. That's encouraging. Okay, we've just gone from 40% ABV Glengoyne with a wee bit of water in it even. Bring it down lower and jumping straight into this 59.1. So I was preparing myself for a big hit of heat and that significant step change in alcohol. But what we've got here is a quality malt. So the heat, the alcohol, it's not hidden. It's there to communicate its flavor and its intensity with you. It is there, but it's well integrated. It's not all knees and elbows, as we say. It's not all loud and shouty and jaggy. It comes across more of a kind of kitchen spice heat, like a cinnamon, a nutmeg, and a fresh kind of pickled ginger heat, that type of thing. Lots of yellow and green fruit again, quite lime green in colour and flavour, this whiskey. So orchard, I'm still leaning on orchard, but there is a little bit of citrus in there as well. I think that's what's bringing that nice acidity. It's not sweet. Lemon peel, orange peel, just a nice acidic bitter citrus. So let's now, we've done a wee appraisal of it. I've kind of got a feeling of this whiskey. It's sitting on my palate quite nicely. So what's the different ways we've got of adding water? You've already seen me use the Ralphie method, the Ralphie of the teaspoon. It's something when your name becomes a verb, right? When you Ralphie something, eh? Then we've got, I mean, we could literally just use a bottle cap, right? I've seen myself doing that before. I've got a bottle of water here. You just take the cap off, you pour a wee bit in. But what I want to try and do is add the same amount of water each time I'm doing it this time. So I've got, no, you don't need to buy specific things for these. Anybody get kids, they ever buy, things like Calpol and medicine and soluble medicines for? Every single one comes with one of these. So we tend to have a drawer full of these things. And you can just stick it in your glass. And the good thing is that you can pick out exactly the right amount of water that you want. And where a water jug, this is the problem with a water jug, as you're trying to pour just a little drop in, the next thing you know, it spills over the lip and you've got far too much water and you've drowned your dram. That's fine for people who like a good scoosh of whiskey, so to speak. But for people that want to be a wee bit more careful, and they know that they've poured 25 mils in the glass, so they're thinking, well, I'm just going to want just a couple of mils. There's 2.5 mils measured out in that wee syringe. And that's what it looks like as it goes into the glass. Now, I've had a couple of sips out of that. So it's a wee bit more. But we're going to do the same thing for more. Let's get... And I left it for a bit. I swirled the glass there. Sometimes when you scoosh that water in to put your nose in straight away, in my experience, you can get a reaction from the glass. Sometimes it's almost like a spritz of like it's been atomized. Sometimes spice can come flying out the glass at you. Sometimes a floral note. But when you first put that water in and you first put your nose back over the glass, there is often a sense, depending on the whiskey, absolutely, depending on how much water you're talking about, of course. But there is a sense that you've done something to the whiskey and it's detectable. It's visceral. I think what we've done here, and I'm just see if I get nothing out of these changes that I make tonight, if I really don't taste or nose or anything that there's not of note or anything different, I'll just say so. It doesn't matter. I know that you don't care. And even if it's just in my own head, even if it can't be scientifically measured, even if I can't get consensus from other people, it doesn't matter. The part of the thing about enjoying whiskey is that we feel it, we sense it. That's enough. And this really has benefited, absolutely benefited on the nose from that wee dash. It was already really lovely and communicative, but I think that we've got a bit more detail. Things are a bit more brighter. It does give you the sense like you've woken it up a little bit. Like I say, if any of the other ones tonight that doesn't happen with, I'll just say so. But I do feel like it's happened with this one. It's not really going in any different direction. It's not bringing anything new, but I just feel like it's just even a wee bit more vivid than it already was. Here's a wee sip. Cheers, everyone. I'm going to pause for a second and say this is an excellent whiskey. I don't know if there's anything that could draw you into saying this is clearly Cotswolds. And I don't think there's anything about it that stands out in any specific particular direction in order for you to tie it down to another similar style. It makes it sound like I'm being negative if I use the word generic. I don't mean to be negative. I want to be positive about this. But it's straight down the middle, good quality. Let's say that way. It's moreish. I'm looking forward to my next sip already. I can tell I'm happy that I bought it. Despite a wee bit of water being in that, we've still got a nice mouthfeel, a nice presence. What I think has come through that's maybe since the water's been added, but certainly didn't spot on the first sip. We've now got a nice kind of fennel, clove, licorice type note. This is something I love in whiskey. I love a bitterness. I love a bit of acidity and bitterness in a whiskey. And it's nice when that happens on the finish. It almost kind of helps to exaggerate a drying finish. And it gives you that kind of moreish sensation where you want to go back for another wee sip. So for me, on the Cotswolds, good whiskies to start with, benefits from just a wee splash of water. It improves greatly, really flavorful, very, very straight down the line, bourbon cask, very malt whiskey in flavor. Hope that makes sense. Gary Field is saying a child syringe is exactly what I use. Listen, you've got them hanging around, right? Why wouldn't you use them? I mean, I've got all these wee vials here. This is a 10 cl vial. No, it's not 10 cl. It's 10 milliliter. So 1 cl vial. And I've got this bigger one for measuring out and blending at home and things like that. I've got an even bigger one through there. I've got jugs and things for all the nonsense, that you like to just when you're in the mood to play around, you're making your own blends or whatever, and you want to kind of record what ratios of whatever you're putting in. But at the end of the day, you can just use whatever you've got on hand for this type of stuff. The reason that I'm measuring and being careful tonight is that just because I want to treat all whiskies the same when we talk about adding water. Michael Wood is in. Good to see you, Michael. He's saying, Roy, the water type must also have a significant impact on wine production. There must be a lot of evidence from French wine production. Yeah, I suppose that's absolutely true. But with wine, you only take it to the point of fermentation. I say only, of course, it's a big deal and things, but you're only fermenting wine. Whiskey is, I think, a separate category altogether once you take that fermented product and then distill it. Scott McIntyre is saying, loving the Calpol trick aqua vitae. I have 2 young girls, so I have hundreds of these around the house. Well, as I say, Scott, the great thing is that unlike a water jug or whatever, and truth be told, unlike a teaspoon, because teaspoons are supposed to be 5 mils, but they're not in reality. I don't know. This doesn't look like a 5 mil teaspoon to me. I suppose I can check it right now. Let's put 5 mils in the old Calpol. Nice thing. See if have we got 5 mils in that. Yeah, we've got 5 mils in the syringe, and it works really quite nicely. There's no air in that whatsoever. Okay, and I need to do this over a glass. Can you see the top of my glass there? Yeah, you can just about. And we'll see if we can get all 5 mils out of this syringe and into this teaspoon without spilling anything. Right, that's it, absolutely brim full, and I've still got a couple of mils left. So, yeah, it's starting to overspill over the edge now. So I would say this wee teaspoon, I know from future use for these type of spoons, 3.5 mil is roughly what that is, according to my Calpol gadget. And these have to be quite accurate, these little syringes, because they're used for delivering medicines, obviously. So they have to be pretty tightly calibrated, I would say. So not that it matters too much to us drinking whiskey, it's just fun at the end of the day. But they're sitting there, they're doing nothing else, so you'd be as well just using them. I suppose you can work out whatever bottle of water you normally have about the house or whatever, how many mils are in your bottle cap or anything like that. Quite impressed with that wee Cotswolds anyway. Class is in, good to see you, buddy. Falscraft is saying, Roy, you already drank from that glass. What is the use of an exact measure of water when you don't have an exact measure of whiskey? The use is that I tell you, I'm mindful of the fact that I've had a couple of sips, and by the time I go on to doing the other whiskies, only a German could ask this question, Class. Sorry, buddy. By the time I go on to the next one, I'll have a couple of sips neat out of that one as well and go through the exact same process. If anybody's tuning in here for scientific accuracy, I'm probably going to let you down. So, but I'll try and keep it as consistent as I can while still being just a whiskey enjoyer. Dave's Drams is saying, I thought I was the only one using a Calpol tube. They're great for judging how much water you are adding. Fantastic. Seems like it's an unspoken thing, a wee cheat that we all have. Doodle the Drama is saying, I poured myself a Circumstance Organic an hour before the vPub started with 5 ml of water. Left it to breathe versus a fresh pour right now. The prepped one has madly transformed, dense flavour. And what's really super interesting about that, Arnie, you're talking about the one that's transformed with more dense flavors is the one that you've diluted. It doesn't make sense, but we have to not think about it as dilution. There's 2 things we're doing with adding water into whiskey. We're changing the makeup of the whiskey, chemically changing it, and we are also diluting it. Diluting it should bring things down, should soften things, should make it more accessible, the ABV less obvious, that type of thing. But because of the chemical reactions that's happening in the glass right in front of our faces, under our noses, it's not as straightforward as we might think. And like I say, it's not necessary for us to scientifically measure this all the time, because most of us aren't scientists, we're just whiskey lovers. But if we feel it, if we sense it, that's enough. Conrad is saying, I use a 250 ml squeezy bottle like you'd find in a lab for adding water to my drams. Good thing about that is you've got that 250 mils, so you're not constantly going back for refills or whatever. But I suppose there has to be a way for that squeezy bottle for you to know exactly how much you're scooshing out at any point in time. But maybe you're not that worried about it. Maybe you're just good at dead-eyeing it, right, Conrad, and you're happy with it. Heli Heimstra is in. Good to see you. He's saying aqua vitae and the barflies. Thanks for chatting, everyone. Night time for me now, and I'll catch up on the replay, buddy. Thank you so much for coming in again, Heli. And I look forward to you picking up on the replay. Oh, here you are, Heli. You're back again. Welcome, my friend. Thanks for picking us up on the replay. Peter Hunt is saying the scientific accuracy is for the distillers. The fun is for our side of things. That's perfect, Peter. Perfect. I will do my best, though, tonight. Dudercourt is saying Roy Duff, the science buff. And you know better than that, Mike, don't you? Willie Dollier is here as well. Good to see you, buddy. I thought the measure was either a wee or a big dreep. That's what it usually is. A wee dreep or a big dreep or a scoosh or a splash. That's the way that we do it. That's the way that we play it. Let's go on to my whiskey crypt tonight. How are we getting on for time? I feel like it's 50 minutes. How are we? No, way behind. An hour and 5 minutes. Yeah, we can move quicker than that, can't we? I didn't get too many complaints at the shorter format. Let's call it summer length vPub of last week. I did get a couple of sarcastic comments, one or two, but not too much. And I think it might be nice just to kind of keep things a bit neater in the summertime. Let's see if I can manage it. This is Glasgow's Constantia. Superb. It's interesting that Glasgow's got this nice lockable cork stopper. So you push it in and it needs a twist to lock it. A little bit like Highland Park as well. It's a nice wee detail. But it's one that you've got to remember when you're uncorking it, of course. So let's get our 25 mils in the glass, more or less. There we go. We don't want to be spilling any unnecessarily. Straight in. 25 mils of, okay, you can't really tell in the bottle, and you might not be able to tell on camera, but I can tell you this does have a winish highlight to it. This does have a kind of slightly pinkish hue, more of a kind of maybe peachy red color through things. So, wine cask. I'm always a wee bit nervous. I'm a bit reticent, definitely. If there's a selection on the shelf and there's a bourbon cask, and a sherry cask, and a wine cask, and a whatever, I'm always going to lean towards a bourbon. It's just the rut, the cul-de-sac that I'm stuck in right now. I'm far less likely to take a gamble on wine cask. However, I've come to trust Glasgow Distillery recently, and I don't care what cask they go into. I always find them interesting. Some of them I've found beyond enjoyable. The Isla cask last year, nothing to do with wine. It was a peated Glasgow that went into an ex-peated Isla cask. It was just gorgeous whiskey. Loved it. Famously, the one I really enjoyed, Manzanilla. And I suspect that I don't know anything about Constantia other than it's South African, that it's a dessert wine, a sweet wine, but I think it's a fortified sweet wine. I might be wrong there. Maybe it's not fortified. But there's a chance that this might be the type of wine cask that I could get along with. I love Madeira, for example. This noses to, I shouldn't have thought about or said Madeira. This noses a wee bit like Madeira to me. Immediately there's a wee bit of wood spice. This does not hide the alcohol as much as the Cotswold does. So this is kind of, I need to be a wee bit more careful with this because the alcohol is quite strong. So I'm just keeping my nose out the glass, keeping my distance a wee bit, at least until I get some water in here. Lots of wood spice. A little bit of wood shavings, but a lot of kind of much more tropical edge to things. Like the fruit here has gone slightly more sticky and ripe. Think of peach, apricot. That family of fruit, but it's ripe. There's a nice kind of sweet, like a rich, runny honey, and a nutty element. This is a completely different beast from the Cotswolds in almost every metric. The nuts like a some people call it a trail mix, but just a kind of fruit and nut type muesli mix. There's orange peel in this too, but kind of dried peel mix that you would use for cakes. There's a wax, a nice rich kind of wax. It marries quite well with that kind of sandalwood wood spice thing. Lots of complexity here. And this is me at full strength, which is pretty potent as well. It's up there in the 50s, isn't it? 56.6. Not bad. Now, I do believe that this is cast strength, but it doesn't necessarily have to be 50. It doesn't say cast strength on the label, I don't think. So there's a chance that there's some reduction water in here already. It's really, really lovely in the nose. Really lovely in the nose. What's their notes on here? And I dodged as soon as I saw there was tasting notes. Okay, fresh apricot and peach. They're saying pink grapefruit, clementine, manuka honey, and dark chocolate. I'll give them the chocolate. I'll absolutely give them the dark chocolate. I'll go one further and suggest that it's orange chocolate as well. Ted Brooks has been very generous and bought 10 Aqua Vitae gift memberships for, so there's 10 brand new barflies just joined up. Thanks to the generosity of Ted Brooks. Thank you very much, Ted, for your generosity. And Glenn Duncan's bought me a dram as well. Glenn, you superstar. Been very, very generous with me, Glenn. It's wonderful to have you in tonight. Wonderful to have your support as a barfly as well. And thank you very much for the dram all the way from Australia. Cheers to you, Glenn, my friend Glenn, Ted Brooks. Thank you very much for your support and your generosity, guys. Cheers. Let's have a wee sip neat, okay? Citrus, sweet citrus, orange, clementine, absolutely. There is a bit of zest and peel and pith and things like that, but there's enough juice, there's enough sweetness there as well. Yellow and orange, some nice spice coming through. Not so much of the waxy, not so much of the chocolate that I managed to pick up on the nose. This is much more kind of detailed and spice driven, grippy. We're feeling the 56.6% ABV on the palate on this one. Sweet citrus, gently spiced, warming, sweet citrus. That's exactly what this is. I felt like it was going to play a wee bit like a Madeira cask, but this is much more orangey. This is much more kind of acidic, citric, and brighter, sharper. Some wood spice, long finish. One more tiny wee sip. Just keep it the same as the first one I had, the Cotswolds I had. We'll get some water in. I feel like, you know, we're talking about my producer of the year. There's a reason that all those Glasgow bottles sit over my shoulder every week of the vPub throughout 2025. Like all the previous producers of the year, they'll feature in the background somewhere. They're killing it. They're killing it. They know what they're about. They know that they've only got young whiskey. So what they're going to do is they're going to bring us a rock solid core range, and they're going to make it as accessible and as well priced as possible. And they're going to focus on bringing that to a minimum quality and making it better and better and better all the time. Check. And then with their occasional releases, they're not drowning us with oddball things flying everywhere. They're bringing out typically 2, 3, 4, I think it's maybe just 3 at a time, small batch releases, and I think it's working out about twice a year. So that's a lot of labels, that's a lot of expressions, but the volumes are tiny. Some of these are only 200 odd, 300 odd bottles at a time. This is a big outturn at 980, I think it was, this Constantia. 980 bottles. The good news for you guys is this is one to go out and buy. Don't consider wine cask being any part of this. Don't let that put you off. I don't think that this is going to be that type of wine cask for you. You're thinking of maybe the type of things that puts me off wine, sometimes fortified wine, sometimes port casks and things like that. And it can come across like a tea note when it's pleasant, like fruit teas and things like that, but it can come across as bitter and a little bit just too tart and sharp, and flavors that I don't enjoy in whiskey for me. I'm sensitive to that. I'm not a great lover of wine casks. This is not that. But it's not like a Madeira cask either. This is bright and sweet and citrusy. This is unique. This is not like anything I currently have on the shelf. I was almost pouring another wee sip in my face there, but I have to add the water now, okay? And I'm going to have my nose over the glass this time. It's got a great nose too. And it goes. Not much of an effect when I scoosh the nose in there. It's going to scoosh the water in on the nose. But I'm going to leave it for a second. Just give it a chance to kind of work itself out. Stick my nose in again and see if we've got anything amplified or anything dampened. George P has been super generous as well. Buying 5 aqua vitae, give memberships for 5 random barflies out there, George. Thank you very much for your generosity, my friend. It's wonderful. Jeff Whisky, Mac 1, Codger, Gero Borkman and Peter Lee all received a gift membership courtesy of George P. Well, we know Codger, we know Jeff Whisky, we know Peter Lee, but Mac 1 and Gero Borkman, that's 2 new names to me, and it's wonderful to have you guys in participating tonight. Thank you for your support. Right, let's see. I'm going a wee bit nuts here, but look, if it's there, it's there. I'm getting mostly very similar tones as previous, but the first thing I get hit with is a confectionery strawberry note. Very specifically, there was a sweet that we had. I don't even remember what they're called now, but they were kind of squishy foam, strawberry things, white in the middle, red on the outside. That order of things. But we're still in the realms of sweet fruit. If water's done anything here, I think it's softened out things instead of being kind of citric and sparkly and spritz like. I think it's more kind of gone sweet confectionery, moving along towards the kind of more maybe chocolate end of things. A wee slight hint of that kind of wax, but like an aromatic waxy note. Let's have a wee sip. Juicy. Citrusy, juicy. And I know that a lot of my notes are sweet, 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 sweet. Don't be fooled into thinking that this is an overly sweet whiskey, because it is not. There's enough vibrance and enough grip and enough sharpness and acidity to keep you fully focused on the whole spectrum. This is orange whiskey. Now, I think that Cotswolds at 70 or 80 quid, if that's what I paid for it. I'm sure I did. I might have paid less. I needed to check. I'm sorry. Great value. Very happy to have it. This is £59. Small batch, ultra small batch, single malt, Glaswegian whiskey, always flavourful, always excellent quality, always super interesting. £59. Who else is doing that? Who else is doing that? It's fantastic. They cannot get away with putting whiskey out there and pricing it cheaply. They can't do that. They can't get away with trying to make the best whiskey they can and forget about the price. Just do the best we can. And if it's expensive, it's expensive. They can't get away with that either because the market isn't open to that right now. Everyone's very careful with what they spend on whiskey. They need to get the balance right. But Glasgow have managed to get the balance perfect and then somehow managed to just add a little bit extra on top of things as well in order to make us never feel like we've been cheated. How many bottles have you bought in your whiskey journey, regardless of how recently you're in or how long you've been around? We know that feeling of buying something and being excited and feeling, let down. It's bad for the brand. It's bad for the exchange. It's bad for the vibes. It's bad for everything. But it's very, very bad for us because it's taken something that we love, we really dearly love, and it's put this really kind of bitter edge on things. When Glasgow are doing what they're doing, they're bringing out kind of peated and unpeated and Tokai and cognac and ex-Isla, Manzanilla and all of these wine finishes. In this series, they brought out a Greek Syrah, this South African Constantia, and I don't even remember Pinot de Chiron. I think that's how you pronounce it. It was a peated version. These are all kind of crazy things that are new to our eyes, new to our nose, new to our ears, certainly new to our palate. If we go to it and we think that it's just an interesting whiskey, it's only £59 and we don't feel cheated. We still feel like it's, and I can tell you that everything that Glasgow have been putting out there is pretty careful. But when it's something that's really good, you can't help but just hop right on board and say, right, I'm ready for what's next. That's the balance. That's what they've been able to do. Here am I raving about a wine cask. It's ridiculous. Wine cask and wine cask can be two completely different things. This is super citrus for me. I don't even know if they mentioned citrus on that label. Peach and clementine, right? Sorry, clementine they did. Apricot, peach, pink grapefruit, yeah. Clementine, manuka honey. But it's what you get when you sip the whiskey in your glass. Did the water make much of a difference here? I think it maybe just softened the edges a little bit. I'm torn whether it was an improvement. I think it was just a little bit different. I think we've got here is just something that's a wee bit of experimentation, but very, very good for it. You Move Joe, that's Yuri who's bought me a dram. Thank you very much, Yuri. How are you keeping? He's saying it's past midnight here. Sending a dram before I fall asleep with a vPub as usual. Yuri, sometimes that's what I'm here for, to help you off to a gentle night's sleep, especially when your time zone's quite a wee bit ahead of us, my friend. Thanks for dropping in and buying me a dram. I hope you're keeping well. Cheers, big guy. Thank you. I've been disappointed by every Glasgow release. You're part of that problem, Aqua Vitae. You're just a complainer, Jimmy Leg. But I mean, I think the important thing is that I don't know how anybody could be disappointed by that. That's the flavour that I've got on my palate right now, is that we all need to chime in. We all need to kind of be part of the noise. And people can attenuate what I'm saying, and I can attenuate what other people are saying, and all of this type of thing. And somebody can work out where the truth lies, or they can work out whether their palate tends to agree with a Jimmy Leg style palate, or whether their palate is likely to fall closer to a Roy steak palette, I suppose. Would you say you could articulate first contact with a dram? Can give an idea if it may need more or less water. It's like feeling you develop, but hard to explain. I would say it as a feeling, but I think that there are obvious things. If you go in and things are just too dense and they're just so overpowering and flavorful, you just know immediately that you're going to want to reach for a wee bit of water. Likewise, when you nose and you taste a dram, and this happens at the Whisky Club a lot, you can tell those drams that are really quite feisty and hot and ABV forward, because you can see everyone taking the first couple of sips and everyone reaching for the water droppers. And there are whiskies like that that make it quite obvious that you feel like attenuating the ABV, a wee bit of dilution is going to help them. But it is, I have to say, it is a wee bit like a feeling. Little Tony, that might be the first time I've welcomed you in. It's good to have you here, and I see that you're a barfly as well. Little Tony, thank you for your support. Tony's saying, I haven't had a disappointing Glasgow yet, Aqua Vitae. They are all winners. That's nice. There's the balance that I'm talking about. Literally just one or two comments after Jimmy's. And there's somebody else to come in. Or it was actually Little Tony was just ahead of Jimmy Legg's comment. That's me because I'm scrolling backwards. Sharmilla is in. Good to see you, Sharmilla Suze. Roy, after 2 days of delivery, I caved and opened my Thompson Brothers Mystery Malt. Instead of waiting for a special occasion, I got the Kalila 14-year-old, sublime, no water needed. Sharmilla, did you pick out the peat in it? Thank you very much, buddy. Glad you're enjoying it. Jimmy's saying, I have to defend myself about the complaining, Aqua Vitae. I'm just not sure how to do it. I don't mind your complaining. This is a safe space to complain, Jimmy, as you very well know. Anthony Lambert is saying Aqua Vitae has gone midnight here in Germany, and I didn't finish work until 10. Just nodded off on the sofa and spilt half a glass of tomato and 18 all over myself. Well, say goodnight and see you soon. Like I say, I'm very good at sending people off to their dreamland. But a wee glass, raise a glass to Anthony Lambert, who's just signed up as a patron. Hey, Anthony, thank you very much for your recent support, my friend. It means a hell of a lot to me, and please pick this up on the replay. Let us know how you got on with the quiz at the end. Good night, Anthony. Going back into that Cotswolds now, I get this big hit of Scottish Tablet, sweet tablet. I don't know if anyone knows what tablet is, but I just got that on the nose going into that one. Terrific. Okay, let's get on with our wee experimentation. I think my blocks tonight were kind of talking about process production. We did that, and the benefits of adding water in addition. I think we've covered that through those 3 drams. But we're going to go into a wee bit of an experiment now. But before we do that, I put out a poll to Anthony Lambert and all my patrons. Anthony got a hold of it because he's joined up recently, but all my patrons, I put out a poll to everyone, and I asked them various questions about their attitude towards adding water. And I hoped that what it would demonstrate is that we are very, comfortable. We're very comfortable with playing with water, adding a few drops, adding a teaspoon, adding a fair scoosh, a bit of dilution, in playing with whiskey in order to understand it and how it affects the flavour and things like that. Famously, master blenders will dilute heavily in order to access as much of the nosing as they possibly can. And that's in itself is an interesting thing to do. Dilute the whiskey right down to maybe half strength or below, 20%, 25% ABV, for instance, and see how your nosing goes there. I hoped that the poll would demonstrate that we're all open-minded to doing these things and playing with water. Because 8 or 10 years ago, when I first got involved in the online whiskey community, I would say, I felt like lots of people were really against adding water. I felt like a lot of the old tropes about having whiskey naked and all of that nonsense were still manifest. And I felt like they could really do with being broken and thrown away. I think we hopefully are at that stage now. Let's have a look at what the patrons said. I killed this off when we reached 302 responses. So for each questions, we'll have somewhere in the order of maybe 275 to 300 responses. So it's not bad. Certainly, it's plenty to give us a feel of what the community thinks. First question I asked them was, Do you tend to add water to your whiskey pours? I'm just asking a very obvious question there. And I gave structured answers, right? And that can be difficult with these multiple choice polls. I should maybe try and should put a bit more thought into it or whatever, but it doesn't really need to be that accurate. It just needs to give us an impression. So for a straightforward water, yes or no, you can see the blue section there. No, I prefer all drams neat as they come. That's a tiny, tiny number, 4% of the respondents. Whereas the 96% say yes in some form. The red section there covering about a quarter of it saying yes, but only occasionally. By more than half, just slightly over half, said yes when I feel it's needed. That's what talking about Arnie's question there, when you get a gut feel for things. And the green section is almost a quarter as well, saying yes most of the time. So yes, yes, yes makes up 96% of people. That's fantastic. We are the majority, it seems, are very, very comfortable adding water. The other 4%, if they have played with water and tried it and worked out that it's really not for them, it's a bit fussy and things, then there's no one size fits all. You know, it takes all folk, and they have worked out what they're enjoying. The only thing I would say to the 4% is that make sure that you know that, because you've tried it with water and playing with water. It really can make a fantastic difference to some drams. Really unbelievable. Question 2. So this is me asking about, well, okay, you're adding water. What kind of water are you adding? And I wanted to try and get a feel about how fussy people were about adding water. Were they just kind of, switching on a tap and passing the glass of whiskey under the tap? Were they being that crazy? Or were they actually being a little bit measured about it? So the options I gave people here is to the question, if you do add water, what kind of water do you use? The tiny blue section here is I have specialist water and I'm careful about it. You might remember at once upon a time, there were companies out there, and they're probably still out there, that were selling you specific styles of water from Speyside, to go with Speyside whiskies, ostensibly, I suppose. Isla expressions, Highland expressions. I don't remember if I saw a Lowland one or whatever, but I have lots of problems with that are myriad all over the place. I just think that, we know that regions are a very, very loose concept at best, even back when they were important. These days, they're even less important now. All distilleries are capable of making all flavors, theoretically, especially the smaller and more varied and diverse that they are. The old blending houses that had to keep to styles, the old distilleries that had to service those blending houses, then that's when regionality plays a part, and kind of consistency and character comes in. So the idea of matching that with water seemed odd to me. Regardless, they existed, and I guess that there are still people out there who are a wee bit fussy about that type of thing. The red section here, 20% of people said I make sure to use only bottled water. And then the yellow section says, as long as it's fresh and at room temperature, it's fine, don't really care. But the vast majority, 45%, say, I just use tap water, whatever they've got. So I guess this question is directly related to how good is the quality of the water that comes out of your tap. I have to say there's a couple more to show you here, but I'll say to you now, Glasgow's tap water from Loch Katrine and Trossachs is pretty good. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's pretty good, and I drink it. I drink litres of it every day. I'm very happy with it. If I go and travel to the Highlands, specifically Speyside, Aviemore, that area, the Whisky Revs, neck of the woods, his tap water is sublime. Absolutely gorgeous in Aviemore. It's just beautiful to drink. It's gorgeous. And I know that as I've travelled around Scotland, there is varying quality and flavour of water. And I know that you think that the flavour of water is mad. I'm maybe going to talk about that a wee bit later when I show you the bottled water I've got here. But it really does make a difference. Now, it's all drinkable. It's all lovely. But there are some waters are better than others. No, not all waters are the same. When I lived in the south of England, in Wiltshire, I couldn't drink the tap water. I was living on bottled water because I found the flavour and the texture and the experience of drinking the tap water really difficult. Very hard water, very lime scale, very heavily tainted. I don't know, I want to not be negative, but yeah, It's fine for cooking, fine for making tea, obviously brushing your teeth, all of those great things. But it wasn't easy to pour and drink a glass of it. We had to use water filters or buy bottled water. That was in a very hard water area. Anyway, the third question I asked is asking them about the practice and things. What do you use to add water? Blue, we're using a jug. Red, we're using a water dropper, being quite precise. So that's the majority, I would say, at 37%. Once you've got a water dropper on hand, I suppose it makes sense to use it. The yellow section there, 22.3%, doing the Ralphie and using a teaspoon. Why not? You've got a glass of water next to you, stick a teaspoon in it, you're away. The green section there is saying anything, all of the above and others, straight from the bottle, the cap, whatever. Somebody pointed out a really funny one, actually, which is quite true, and that's if you've got nothing on hand, but you've got a dram. This is my Glengoyne here. Just stick your fingers in the glass of water and just drop it in. You just get a few nice drops off your fingers, and that's as good a way as any, right? So you don't even need to have bottle caps, water jugs, kids' medicine syringes. Just a way to get a wee drop of water in the whiskey, you're fine. Glengoyne's obviously tasting a little bit light on flavour now, going back after those two, but still perfectly pleasant. So you can see that we're all over the spectrum here, any and every which way. The responses drops down a wee bit here, because we obviously lose the people that are not adding water. But the final question I asked is, in the end, does it make a difference? Okay. And here we can see in summary, we've only got 2% of people that say, look, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. The vast majority, 88%, feel like it is at least worth experimenting. The options I gave here, the vast majority, this huge red section of 65% of people said it helps some more than others, but it's generally positive. The blue section here at 14% says it changes every whiskey I try. The green section is saying it's tricky and can easily ruin a decent pour. Similarly, some negativity in the yellow section saying it helps some more than others, but generally weakens it. But if we remove the negative, we've got 88% of people saying that it helps and that it's at least worth experimenting. So I think that's quite interesting to me, in as much as that it proves what I felt was a gut feeling. I was confident that we weren't having that discussion anymore. A discussion that used to have in the comment sections of YouTube videos 10 years ago. Absolutely, people were talking about the distiller has prepared the whiskey to be at that ABV. We should be drinking at that alcohol strength. Adding water is this, that, and the next thing. And, you know, you could really see some people getting into this really purist mentality, which is fine, but they often, to fall into that mentality without the justification or without experimenting before you end up there, for me was always a wee bit kind of narrow-minded and didn't always make a lot of rational sense. So I think we're way beyond that now. So I'm not going to really achieve anything tonight. I'm not going to encourage people that aren't typically using water to start using water, I don't think. But if I do, great. But I'm not going to put anybody off their practices. What we're going to do is just sit about talking about enjoying whiskey in the way that we like to enjoy it. Thankfully, today in 2025, especially with a sheer amount of single casks, independently bottled stuff, bottled straight from cask strength official bottlings, higher ABV bottlings, 46, 48, 50 plus percent ABV. These are all prime whiskies for you to play with water. But even if you have low ABV whiskies at 40% already reduced, or low ABV whiskies that are natural cask strength at low ABV, these all can surprise you with wee drops of water. The effects that it has can be incredible. Seriously. Arnold Banderas. Arnold, that might be the first time I've welcomed you in. He's bought me a dram. Thank you very much. No comment from Arnold. I wonder where you are, buddy, but it looks like US currency, so you're maybe in North America, in the States. It's wonderful to welcome you at the vPub, and I thank you very much for your generous dram, my friend. Cheers, Arnold. A dram also in here from my pal Donald Rance. Good to see you, Donald. How are you keeping well in Canada? Just wanted to drop a wee dram to say thank you for continuing these vPubs. Catching this one makes me miss being able to catch the lives regularly. Slancha. Donald, I know what it's like, buddy. I know how it is. Sometimes you're able to pick it up live, other times not. The great thing about the vPub is that it's there for everybody to fit around their lives as it suits them. Donald, I just welcome you in here, my friend, and it's nice to have you back again, buddy. Thank you for your generosity as always. All right, let's get on with Darnay's saying, one thing I noticed, putting water into the whiskey is great, but leaving the glass wet with tap water and not drying it before adding whiskey is not. The smell of water on the glass is real. Oh, I'm okay with that. One of the things that we often do at festivals, tastings, yada, blah, blah, blah. You pour water into a glass, you give it a good rinse, you drink the water, you stay hydrated by filling the glass up and drinking it. The glass is wet and you pour the next dram in. It's never really been affected too much by me. I think that might be a lot to do with some other things, Arnie. That's not something I would get stuck on. If you go and drink with the Thompson brothers in Dornoch, you might see them regularly, deliberately wet the glass and slosh it out or drink it before they pour a dram into it. If you're getting smells from the glass, if you're getting smells from water going into the glass, that can absolutely happen. But I would say just kind of rinse it out and drink it and give it another rinse and things. You shouldn't be getting smells unless you're using smelly water, but you're in Glasgow, Arnie, so I doubt that that's the case. Okay, let's get a few glasses out in front of me. I might need 3, I might need 4, and if I get really playful, we might end up with 5. What are we going to pour into this? We're going to pour the Midgie into this. We're finally going to get this opened. This is batch 2 of the Midgie with Arnie's artwork on there, who we've just been speaking to there. Wonderful to have the artist in the vPub tonight with us. 48% ABV, the Midgie is. 50, is it? 48% ABV. So it's not cast strength. This is drinking strength, let's say 48% ABV, chosen strength by Ardnamurchan. Last year's Midgie was only a UK exclusive. Different makeup to this completely. I'm trying to remember what else that they put in it last year. What was the wood type? Madeira. I want to say Madeira, was it last year? It was bourbon and I think a bit Madeira. What they've done this time around, you can probably see, I don't know if the camera will tell you. Can you see me through there? This is some port casks in here. So they've got bourbon, unpeated, bourbon peated, and port casks. And they've actually got 1 sherry butt in the mix as well. Oh, quite a soft pop. Let's do better. There we go. Now I have tried this a couple of times. I was going to keep this as a souvenir because of Arnie's artwork, but hey, it's open now. But this is the first time I've actually sat down and tried it in earnest, certainly with any kind of methodical thought. So let's use a re-pour. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to drink all of these. We are sacrificing some Midgies tonight for this wee experiment. We're going to have a swarm of Midgies out here in front of us, so I won't be drinking them all. Some of these Midgies will end up in the spittoon. Does everyone know what a Midgie is? It is flying death. It's one of the most frustrating, annoying, uncomfortable things in Scotland. When the air is still and it's humid, summertime from about May, specifically, it can be outside of the season as well, but May through to September, we've got a swarm of these tiny, tiny creatures. And it's famously the females that bite. I learned that through this expression of whiskey. And they're after your blood. And they leave a wee tiny welt. But there's so many of these. And it's so itchy and so annoying, so uncomfortable. Anyway, managed to get take that down to almost the shoulder, and I've poured 4 drams. Here we have them. And the way I'm going to work this is I'm going to put different water in each, but I'm going to keep one neat. The first one, I'm going to keep neat. Now, I've already admitted that port cask matured whiskey is my kryptonite. Red wine, port cask. It's not my favourite. Immediately I get it in the nose there, but it's not too overpowering. What we've got is a nice kind of berry fruitiness, and there is a wee bit of tannins on the nose, but they're not sharp or dry or off-putting. It's not stewed tea. It's more of a fruit tea tannin. I'm not drawn to feeling like I'm licking some wine-flavoured wood, which is encouraging. And I know from trying this in the past that we don't have that. Michael Brown's bought us a wee dram. Thank you, Michael. He's saying, Roy, your opinion on using distilled water? Thanks for all you do, Slantia. Well, I'm not going to be able to experiment with distilled water tonight. I don't have any distilled water on hand, Michael. And I've never used it, distilled water specifically to play with whiskey. But what I would say is that if it's the only clean, untainted, flavourless, aromaless water that you have around, then it's better than something that's tainted. So if you've got a lot of chlorine in your tap, if you've got a lot of lime scale, if you've got a lot of taint in your tap water or something like that, then, you know, by all means. None of the waters I'm going to use tonight are distilled. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use. The first thing is that there was some controversy back in the day. I didn't drink a lot of Iron Brew. I didn't drink a lot of Coca-Cola. I didn't drink a lot of sodas, I think some people would call them. We would say in Glasgow, we just call them cans of juice. Didn't drink a lot of that, but I drank a lot of water, bottled water. So if I was going to a shop, it was a bottle of water I was picking up, and I would always reach for Evian, even if it was more expensive. Why is that? It wasn't brand loyalty. I didn't care about that. I had friends and family who would make fun of the fact that if I read this backwards, it would say naive and things like that. You know, people would be like, why do you buy the expensive tap water? And the reason is I could taste a difference, to the point that if you poured water for me blind, tap water, some other bottled water brand, and Evian, I would pick out the Evian every time. And it was my favourite flavour. And I was willing to pay a wee bit more for that favourite bottle of water. Now, we talk about water not having flavour, not having kind of much, it's just water, but that's not true. And I'll go further than that as well, and I'll say that different waters have different textures as well. But we're into the weeds a wee bit. The reason I've picked up a bottle of Evian tonight is not that I'm onto tap water now. Everywhere I go, I carry tap water. I don't buy much bottled water anymore. But I bought this tonight because this is famously high in calcium and magnesium. It's a harder water. Evian is famously slightly hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to employ our syringe like we did earlier. And we're going to put 2.5. No, let's go for it. We've got 25 mils in our glass. So we're going to put in 5 mils of hardish Evian water in our first pour. I'll put the bottle behind it so that I can keep up with what one is where. Then next, I'm looking for, of course, a soft water. This is probably the best-selling bottled water in Scotland. This is Scottish sourced. I don't know, I think it's Perthshire. I can't really read the small print on the back. It matters not. This is typically Scottish water. And a wee bit of quick Googling and online research tells me that this is also typically soft. So let's put in lots of this, 5 mils, it's a full teaspoon, into our second. And then for our third, I don't know why I bothered with a bottle here. This is a wee bit of tap water I've got in this one, but I won't get the syringe into that. It's only half full. That's no worries, because my glass of water sitting next to me is the very same Kunsel juice, the very same tap water. Okay, and we'll put 5 mils in that one. So what we've got Neat, hard water, soft water, tap water. I'm going to pour one more Ardna Midgie because I'm going to try something if I'm in the mood, and I'll probably be in the mood for the end of the session tonight. I know you're thinking I'm wasting a lot of whiskey here, but consider that I'm taking one for the team, especially on that last pour. Oops. Okay, let's get into the Midgie. Let's just do what we always do is we've uncorked it. This is a neat glass. Berry fruit. Hedgerow berry fruit. Even makes me think of a wee bit of green, a wee bit of kind of dock leaf and tomato vine. I'm not picking up much in the way of smoke on this at all. I know I do pick up a wee bit of kind of smoky, savoury peat on the palate. This is not a particularly smoky whiskey, despite a considerable amount of smoky malt that's gone into it. If you don't like smoky whiskies, you'll pick up smoke. If you drink the amount of smoky whiskies that I do, this is soft, soft, soft. Berries, definitely. Some kind of chocolatey notes. It is, I have to be honest, and it's not, I'm not looking, I'm not forcing this. I was playing a wee bit tight. It's playing a wee bit tight with us here. The Midgie's being coy. Maybe could do with sitting in the glass a wee bit longer, just having some time to open up, could get a bit more expressive. There is some chocolate. There is some malt, some barley malt, but I'm looking for the kind of outdoor Ardnamurchan vibes. And it's only by looking them and kind of forcing it. I don't know if they're being expressive and obvious with me. They're not. Ardnamurchan's always got this lovely kind of pebbles and beach notes and seashell and salty salinity thing. Salty salinity, what other kind of salinity do you get? But it's a wee bit closed. Let's have a sip and give it a wee bit of time. Oh, much better on the palate. Not too much of that port. There is some there. There is a wee bit of red fruit and things. Much, much more expressive on the palate. Kind of wee bit of almost like sweet confectionery type cough medicine note, like a wee bit of cherry tunes, that type of thing. Wee bit of menthol, kind of leaning into that green thing I was getting on the note, maybe a little bit. So now another wee sip. So this is quite a rounded thing. This is quite, rather than kind of being sharp and jaggy and detailed and bright, this is quite, it's almost like a blend. It gives you the impression of a blended whiskey. Whereas things have been kind of rounded out a little bit, filled out. Okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead. I've got a kind of basic understanding of the neck pour of the Midgie. And I've put different water in each. Now, I will not try and cook this. If I do not get differences with these, and we've got a fair ratio here. We've got 25 mils of whiskey and 5 mils, sorry, of water in it. So it's like a generous teaspoon in each. If I don't get anything from this, I won't try and force it. This is the hard water, or let's say Evian. It knows as much better with water. This has really helped things open up. Certainly it's easier to get your nose in and just... So that malty thing is there's more of that, a little bit like a biscuit base. It's warm, there's earthy tones coming through here. Quite interesting. A nice kind of potpourri, aromatic, slightly floral note, but quite sweet as well, almost like maybe there's some dried orange rind and things in this potpourri mix. That cherry thing again, cherry menthol. Some wood spice. I'm feeling like it's just with a wee bit of water, this is easier to communicate with. It's not deliberate. Like I say, not going to force this back to the neat one. Yeah. It's just easier to access with a wee bit of water in it, I would say. So if you're into nosing and parsing things out and trying to draw out individual things, sometimes water can be your ally if that's your vibe, right? If that's what you like doing. I'm just going to nose that just now. I'm just tempted to sip it. Let's go into soft water, see if I can nose anything differently. I feel, let's just leave it just now. I feel like this one feels a wee bit richer, a wee bit stronger, a wee bit, but it could just be down to quantities. I tried to pour everything identical. And finally, tap water at the end. Okay. Feel 100% confident, and it'll be a surprise to no one if I was to label these up right now with colored dots, match them up, shuffle them up, and then try and tell them or tease them apart. I know instantly there'd be no chance. I do feel like the middle one with the soft water feels a wee bit richer, a wee bit. Do I? Could literally be anything. Okay, I think we're just going to need to go in for a sip. Let's try the neat one first. Really juicy, easy drinking whiskey. Berry fruit. No jagginess at all. Soft, round. Okay, hard water sip. Much better on the nose. Absolutely 100% prefer the 48% neat pour. Night and day. I've still got all the flavors there. I've still got all the there's a wee bit of bitterness on the finish there, a wee bit of tannins, a wee bit of wood, a wee bit of oak on the finish. The departure there has left its kind of, there is some bitterness there on the finish. It's not a bad thing, but I feel like the neat pour is less fun to nose, much better on the palate, and the exact reverse on that first one. Let's go in for the Highland Spring, see if we taste. Does it taste any richer? I want to taste a difference. I feel like there's a... It's pure placebo, isn't it? I just feel like that is nosing a wee bit warmer, a wee bit richer, a wee bit more earth tones. Could be completely wrong. Let's go for the tap water. if there's a difference here, it's going to take a better nose and a better palate than mine to pick it out. Honestly speaking, I'm feeling like maybe there's a chance there could be 2 or 3 mils more whiskey in the middle one, and that's enough to kind of make it a little bit more weighty or whatever with the soft water in it. But honestly, if you were to mix these up blind, would I be able to try? Well, I'll be able to test it out. Let's try it. Shutting my eyes. If I just kind of mix it round, the one in the middle was the Watt whiskey glass. I've already got no idea which is which. Okay, I'm not going to look. I'm just going to try. No, I'm going to say this is Watt whiskey glass. No, exact opposite. So it's pure placebo. I can detect, perhaps if I was to go 50% whiskey, 50% water, perhaps if I was to have a tiny measure of whiskey filled up to the top with water, something like that, maybe we would start to taste a bit of a difference with different water in it. So if you're using water maybe as a mixer, maybe there's mileage in being a bit more selective. But I think when you're using such tiny amounts of water as we do, 5 mils in a 25 mil, 30 mil pour, maybe even less than that at times, that's quite a generous scoosh, right? I would have to say that if you're finding a difference with different water, you're doing this better than I am. What I would say though is to be careful that your tap water isn't tainted, if it's heavily chlorinated, if it's got lots of hard water elements or lime scale or whatever. Be careful of that. Why have I poured 1 extra glass? Well, it was suggested by a couple of folk, and somebody came on recently talking about how it was, I wish I could remember, it was in the Patreon comments. I apologize, I've forgotten your name. You really do deserve a shout out. There's a couple of people had mentioned that once in a blue moon they like this, and they've been traveling abroad and things, and they encounter people abroad that will have this water poured over whiskey and ice. And Very Whiskey Shop is saying there's a fountain in Evian in France that's free to residents to drink from. I wonder if it's as gorgeous as I imagine. Good to have you in, Mike. How you doing? Brian Stormont is saying we are lucky where we are that the water is superb, but my daughter is a slave to Evian. Like you, she says she can taste the difference. Unfortunately, I can. So if you're going to buy a bottle of water anyway, but I wouldn't. I'm glad to say I'm past the stage of if I've got good tap water on hand, I don't need it. Dan DVDW is saying water definitely has flavour. Spa is among the worst waters. Evian's decent. My tap water is great. My neighbour's sucks, so it's partly the pipes as well. It matters, and we can taste it. It really does matter. Hillswood is saying, going to pull an early parachute and catch the rest on replay. My last day at work for a month tomorrow, so need some shut-eye. Good night, Roy, and you wonderful barflies. Best of luck for your last day at work tomorrow, Helen, and for everything that's coming in the days ahead. When you pick this up on the replay, know that we're already rooting for you. Daisy Leland is in as well. Good to see you, Daisy. Graham Fraser celebrating being a member of Barflies for 62 months. Hopefully not a watered down quiz tonight, Roy. I can guarantee you, I do not think it is. Doodle the Drama is saying, thank you for this great vPub on this topic. Brilliant. I'm off to the Snoring Chariot, but before I go again, please do one on clear versus cloudy wort. I'll ask again next week. That's beyond me. Cloudy versus clear wort, my goodness. I think this is just about as geeky as I want to take solo sessions on the vPub, Arnie. I don't know if that answers your request. All right. Okay. I got Michael Brown's chat, didn't I? And I got Arnold Banderas as well. Thanks, guys. Okay, let's sacrifice our last midgie. Squish our last midgie by adding a different type of water. This is soft water, this is Scottish water, this is Highland Spring, but this is sparkling water. Somebody in the Patreon comments added this by mistake recently, and confessed that they added it by mistake before they realized that it was. Let's see if we can find out who it was. No, Peter Blaurock. Could have been in that post. Could have been there. Sorry, guys. But I'm going to put some fizzy water in it. It's really frustrating, isn't it? I just like giving people credit. Credit where credit's due and all of that. Okay, it might have been a private message. Hey, I'll figure out a way to. But this person had said, and somebody had said that they'd been traveling abroad, as I say, and they discovered, wherever they were, Greece or Spain or something, they discovered that people were adding fizzy water, sparkling mineral water. And in Germany, the most popular bottled water is mineral water. This is full of bubbles in this. So let's go. There's 5 mils of fizzy water into a dram of whiskey. Doesn't really look much different. It does look a wee bit different. It does look a wee bit different. There is wee bubbles in there. And let's see if this actually makes an appreciable difference. Is there going to be fun? Is there anything I can recommend in discovering here? It doesn't make any appreciable difference to the nose that I can pick out. Okay, a wee sip. I'm going to lose subscribers for this. That's quite pleasant. Let's put another wee 10 in. Another wee 5 in, sorry, make it 10. More fizzy water in our glass. Poor Midgie, right? I don't think I'm amplifying the whiskey's flavour. I don't think I'm making the whiskey any easier to dissect or parse or pull apart. But this is not. It adds a mineralic quality as well. This is not unpleasant. It's really, really not. I'm almost tempted to just get some ice and some fizzy mineral water and just see how it is as a tall drink. I mean, it would be amazing if I discovered a new favourite drink. Usually it's soda water, which is obviously water with bicarbonate of soda added to it. And that's what I would sip in Spain for a tall drink, a whiskey-flavoured tall drink in Spain. I'm usually using Jameson or a Spanish blend or whatever it may be when I'm out there. But this might be a thing because soda water is difficult to get hold of in Spain. I think there's an oddness that might take a wee bit of getting used to. I think a lot of the bubbles are kind of wiped out immediately going into the alcohol, but there remains a mineralic quality to the whiskey with fizzy water added to it. That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. And I have to say, I'm not disappointed by that wee discovery. That's quite interesting. Yes. Peter Lee is saying a fizzy, buzzing midgie. Lol. Good to see you in, Peter. How you doing, fella? Brian Stormont is saying it's a fizzy water cocktail. That's exactly right, Brian. Class is celebrating being a member of the Barflies and saying love sparkling water. I'd never add it to whiskey. I would never. Well, until you've done it once, class. We've been talking about this whole vPub of trying not to be locked in our mindset, right? Just consider it. Sacrifice 1 dram. And if you don't feel like it, allow me to sacrifice one of mine the next time we're together. If you remind me, I'll be the one that pays for the dram. Fernando's saying, right now, you're beyond Ralphie. I'm in trouble. Lowlander is saying, get yourself a soda stream. Right enough. Yeah, absolutely. And Alistair McPhail is back in. He's saying, aqua vitae Roy, a dram for you to toast Peter Lee's birthday next Tuesday. Great vPub, a divisive topic that isn't as divisive as we thought. Exactly that, Alistair, exactly that. Yeah, I'm going to raise... I'm going to go back to one of the earlier drams. And if it's Mr. Lee's birthday on Tuesday next week, that's a fantastic thing to celebrate. Anybody that doesn't know Peter Lee is very, very likely, if they hang around this community for long enough, to get to know exactly who Peter Lee is. I wasn't sure what day was his birthday, but it would seem it's Tuesday. So that's, what is that? 17th? 17th of June is Peter's birthday. I'm going to raise this wee glass. And I'm going to ask you all of you that have access to nice words or hearts or channel-themed whiskey emojis, to raise a wee glass to the superhuman, Mr. Hospitable himself, Peter Lee, and wish him a very, very happy birthday in the days ahead. I hope this is your weekend for celebration, big guy. Many happy returns. All the best to you. Cheers, fella. I've been invited to these birthday celebrations in the past, but I didn't necessarily remember which day it was. Discordia is in. Good to see Discordia. Sparkling water is basically soda water. Nothing wrong with making a highball. Exactly that. One of my favourite drinks to have. Nice to have you in, Discordia. Nice to have you here. Let's see if I can get some of the emoji in to wish Peter Lee a happy birthday. I nearly wished Peter Hunt a happy birthday there. 2 Peters in. There we go. Fantastic. Many happy returns when the day comes along, buddy. So I don't think I've changed any minds. That wasn't the intention tonight. I think maybe I've made us all a wee bit mindful of staying hydrated over the course of the summer, whether that is staying hydrated with whiskey with a wee bit of water in it, or whiskey with water on the side, or just plenty good quality, not tainted water. It matters not. It is absolutely the water of life, right? We can't survive without water. And I think that it's amazing that we manage to mix grains with water. And, through various processes like milling, malting, mashing, adding yeast, of course, for fermentation, through distilling, and through putting it into storage casks that are very, very active, organic casks of oak, that we end up with this maelstrom of flavour that has everything to do with water. It's impossible to exist without water. Water remains part of the enjoyment. I'm going to end with one of these tropes. We're talking about the thunderstorms that might have not appeared tonight as we started the vPub. As the rain came down and it got sticky and humid, I can still feel it in the air just now. There's a window over my right shoulder here that's open. There's some cool, damp air coming in, but it's still thick and muggy. And it's one of the old trope is that today's rain is tomorrow's whiskey. And I think it's absolutely true. To not add water to whiskey is literally to defy what it is from. It's our stupidity, it's our hubris, it's our mindset, it's our adhering to norms and rules and things that whiskey, I don't like rules. And in fact, if you turn around and say there are no rules, then you are making rules. I just like it to be what it wants to be. If we decide that something is so, let's make it because we've tried it and we've decided that it's so. Let's not decide that it's so because we just don't like the idea of it. I think whiskey attracts a much more fun mindset with a bit more plasticity than that, I think. Anyway, the reason I finished on a fizzy water tonight was to demonstrate that. I was only going to do it if I was in the mood, and I was. So there we go. Anyway, how are we doing for time? 2 hours, 15 minutes. It's going to be a regular length vPub tonight. It's just the way it is. I thought it could be a wee bit neater, but there we go. And I managed to make a vPub out of talking about water and whiskey, which I never thought I could do, but there you go. Please consider staying for a wee bit of fun quiz at the end tonight. It is a typically tricky, challenging, easy, sneaky, frustrating quiz at the end. That's my feeling. Ben, Whiskey with Molly's. If today's rain is tomorrow's whiskey, then I'd have a lot more whiskey in my house. That's right. That's right. We can't treat these things literally, Ben, though, right? It does make a lot of sense. Consider how many distilleries were not making whiskey in May because of that gorgeous weather that we had. Anyway, we're getting ready for a quiz at the end. I hope you're all up for it. Falsgraf is saying, I would not expect a neat vPub when adding water. Thanks for joining us again, class. Thanks for being in here, buddy. Klitz is saying, clearly, aqua vitae, with all the water talk, the vPub wouldn't be that neat, would it? Exactly. Context is everything. When I say a neat vPub and be neat on time, it's very different from being neat on dilution. Absolutely. But I like it. I like the play on words. Good to have you in as well, Klitz. Okay, if we're ready for the quiz, it's quiz time. Peterhead Frank is in here. Fantastic. And he's saying bye-bye, cowards. It's nothing to do with cowardice. Quizzes sometimes are not folks' thing, right? Okay. Good luck, everyone. If quizzes are your thing, this one is multiple choice. You're only playing it for fun. It is designed to start off a bit easy, but then get harder as we go on through the night. And the question 10 is always going to be an asshat, deliberately designed to be really, really quite obtuse and difficult. Watch out for the banana skins, and I wish everybody the best of luck. The pass mark is usually 5. You're only playing against yourself, but you can lean against the crowd and use them for a bit of guidance if you're stuck. Question 1. Which of these distilleries might you consider short-lived, built on the same site as other malt distilleries? I'm going to give you a list of 3 distilleries, and I want you to consider which would you consider short-lived, built on the same site as other malt distilleries. A. Conclaith, B. Malt Mill, C. Pitty Which of those were built on the same site as other malt distilleries and you might consider them short-lived? Dan DVDW is saying that, and he's right, because he's saying he's 9 out of 10 also hurt. So, I mean, it's just as painful to get a 9 out of 10 as it is to get a 4 out of 10. Because if you feel like you're just about and close to the end, maybe question 8 or 9 or especially 10, you lose that perfect score. It can be really, really frustrating. But I never want to do it just to be horrible and just to rip the rug out from everyone's feet. I always want it to be at least something that makes people think. And the more that you think about it, the more you remember it. And the more you remember it, the more you pick up more wee kind of curious things that might drive your whiskey knowledge, your whiskey seeking and searching a wee bit more. Mike Molasses saying, can I improve my 9 out of 10 from last week? Magic 8 Ball says doubtful. You're using your magic 8 ball. Seaweed World is in. Good to see you. That's sherry, isn't it? If you add water, you get even more flavors. Fantastic sherry. I think it's very, very true a lot of the time as well. Jesus, I haven't even seen the question yet. Too scared to answer, says Jimmy Legg. Too scared to answer. Follow the majority, B. So we're looking for a short-lived distillery built on the same site as other malt distilleries. B, not sure for C. Ted Brooks is saying Blee as well. You've been here before, Ted. Nice to have you in again. Remembering the Blee comment. That's the Blee mistake from me. Okay, Pitty was literally bolted on the side of Duffton Distillery, okay, or at least on the side of Duffton buildings. It's on the exact same site as Duffton Distillery in Duffton. So Pitty is absolutely correct. Malt Mill, if you go to visit Lagavulin on Islay, the visitor centre that you stand in is the site of the old Malt Mill distillery, so that is absolutely correct. And Kinclaith was built inside the Inverleven complex in Glasgow. So all three were built on the site of other distilleries, but only B and C were built on the site of malt distilleries. Kinclaith was built on the site of a grain distillery. That's why the banana skin was there. But you still get a 66% chance of getting that right, as the majority of you did. Move on to question 2. Billy Stitchell was a celebrated manager of which distillery for over 40 years, with a 2013 special releases edition bearing his name? Which distillery was he the manager of? A, Oban. B, Kalila. C, Aberfeldy. Billy Stitchell was the manager of which distillery in service to the whisky industry for over 40 years, resulting in a 2013 special releases edition bearing his name? That was Oban, Kalila, or Aberfeldy. Easy peasy stuff to start with, surely. Whisky with Molly wasn't A, Lagavulin. Malt Mill was Lagavulin, yes. Kinclaith was Strathclyde. Black Fen is in, not answering yet, I don't think, Conrad, are you? Just having a chat with Dan. Daisy is going with B. Ben Whisky with Molly's going with B. Mikey Hay. Listen, everyone's going for B. Mikey Hay, so good to see you in. Angus C is saying going with the crowd. B, absolutely right, Angus. Good to have you in and playing along. And it's right to go with the crowd. This was mentioned quite recently, but Kalila's 2013 Diageo special releases. It could have been, I suppose, Oban special release. Aberfeldy was once a Diageo distillery. They had to sell off in the 90s. So it's now a Dewar's distillery. So it had to be, of course, Kalila from Islay. Question 3. Which of these distilleries is renowned for pioneering accelerated maturation and finishing in first fill 100-litre quarter casks? Okay, seems like a tricky question until you see the answers, I think. I'm going to give you 3 distilleries now. I would like you to tell me which one is renowned for pioneering accelerated maturation and specifically finishing in quarter casks. A, Glenmorangie. B, Lefroy. C, Ardmore. I think this maybe justifies a wee bit of a banana skin, actually. Billy Stitchell sounds like an American golfer. says Ben. Klitsch is saying, well, B, and then sometimes C. Glenn FC is in. Good to see you, Klaus. He's saying B. Graham Fraser is saying, I'll go B. Black Fen Conrad. It's also saying B, along with Ted Brooks, Petehead, Daisy Leland. Rob Too Slow is in. Good to see you, Rob. Mikey Henry saying, if banana skin, then maybe not B. Hold. Pedro Menezes from Brazil. He's in to play along with the quiz at the end. How you doing, Pedro? Nice to have you in here. B, but really not sure. Discordia B. Everybody's going for B. And maybe Ben is starting to say, well, maybe it's C. I can tell you that Glenmorangie is absolutely a pioneer for bourbon cask maturation as well as some other things. But quarter casks, first fill quarter casks, absolutely the remit of Lefroy and Ardmore. Sister distilleries, of course, under Beam Suntory. And sometimes you see Ardmore using refill Islay casks from Lefroy. Ardmore famously has Highland peat, of course, and a lower peating level in terms of phenols than Lefroy. So works quite well. Question 4. Which of these sets completes the sentence? Okay, I'm going to give you 3 sets to complete the following sentence. Cutty sark can refer to A, whiskey, a traditional knife, or a ship. Cutty sark can refer to B, whiskey, an overshirt, or a freight firm. By freight firm, I mean a freight company. Cutty sark can refer to C, whiskey, a short dress, or a ship. Only one of those sets fits. Which set is it? Cutty sark, whiskey, knife, ship, whiskey, overshirt, freight firm, or whiskey, short dress, and ship. Cutty sark. This is splitting the crowd on question 4. Wow. Excellent. Everyone is saying Cutty Sark was an amazing ship. You can go and see Cutty Sark. It's part of a exhibition piece, museum piece, outdoor activity, whole thing, on the south banks of the River Thames. It was built, I think the Cutty Sark was built, I want to say it was built in Glasgow. I feel like it was built in Glasgow. I could be wrong there, but I feel strongly it was a Glasgow-built ship, but it's now an exhibit in the Thames. Sugar Kitty's talking to Tam O'Shanter. Absolutely. It takes so much, the name, so much is connected with Tam O'Shanter. I can tell you that a whiskey, an overshirt, and a freight firm is not the case. We're talking about it being a ship, so that immediately eliminates B. So, as you've been quite rightly rocking backwards and forwards from A and C, it's either a knife or a short dress. And I can tell you that a Cutty Sark, as per worn by the witch in Tam O'Shanter, is a short dress. So if you answered C, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Built in Dumbarton, says Ben Whiskey with Molly. There you go. Not in the Clyde, but built in Dumbarton, just outside of Glasgow. Thanks for that, Ben. If you answered C, give yourself a point as we go into the picture question. And we're on to branding here. Not boats anymore, but a train. Very tiny little picture of a train. And I'm obviously going to ask you what label we're looking at here. Daisy is saying, but a Cutty Sark is a knife as well. I've heard of a ski and do. I've never heard of a Cutty Sark as a knife. So unless a Cutty Sark is a knife that cut the dress, and the dress therefore took the name from the knife. But you know the rules, Daisy. If you want to take a point for question A in the quiz at the end, you absolutely can, and it's yours. Go right ahead. I'm going to give you 3 distilleries for the label that we're looking at now. We're looking at either A, a Longmorn label, B, a Benriach label, C, a Glengarry label. What are we looking at? Pretty easy so far, I think. The majority on 4 out of 4. Ben Demon Hunter saying, haven't tried any Cutty Sark yet. You could do a lot worse than picking up a very inexpensive bottle of Cutty Sark Prohibition. It's a fantastic whiskey to sip, and it's an excellent mixing whiskey too. No, the witch, Ben is saying the witch was called the Cutty Sark, not the short dress. No, that's not true. I want to remember the name of the witch now. She had a strange name. It wasn't Annie. It was a stranger name than that, but it was a very similar 2-syllable name. Oh, my old brain. Sorry, the witch in Tam O'Shanter was not called Cutty Sark. Or if she was named after the clothes she was wearing. There we go. What do we have here? Everyone's going for A for Longmorn with very, very, very little deviation here. Everyone's suggesting that's Longmorn, and you're absolutely right. Despite that being not the standard Longmorn labelling, that's actually the Secret Speyside labelling. You've picked it out. Obviously, you can see the founding year of 1894. That might help you. The train, part of the railway system, of course, and obviously the distillery manager at the time. Longmorn's 18. Gorgeous whiskey. Question 6. A pre-2002 vintage Ardmore will feature what unusual and no longer possible production characteristic? It has to be pre-2002 vintage to feature A, the fact that it's made from floor malted barley, B, condensed and worm tub condensers, or C, direct coal-fired distillation. So pre-2002 vintage Ardmore is either likely to be floor malted barley, condensed in worm tubs, or direct fired distilled. Danny Hebbington is celebrating his pass mark already with a 5 out of 5. He can relax for the hard questions now. Good stuff. Ardmore until 2002 was either floor malted barley, worm tub, or coal-fired distillation. Angus C is saying he loves old Ardmore. Spot on, everyone. Such knowledgeable folk, maybe straightforward by process of elimination, but still great to know anyway. Pre-2002 vintage Ardmore is going to be coal-fired. Absolutely direct-fired stills up until 2002. Even post-2002 Ardmore is still pretty gorgeous liquid and to be sought out. Question 7. The Glenlivet Distillers Limited was formed of 4 whiskey companies in 1899. And these guys survived for about 78 years. With 3 of the original 4 whiskey companies sharing the same what? 3 out of 4 shared the same what? A, family surname. So 3 out of 4 companies shared the same family surname. B, 3 out of 4 companies shared the same original founders. Or C, 3 out of the 4 companies shared the same steam engine. Watch out for the banana skin. This is a tough question. This is a tough question, and it relies on a phenomenon, if that helps you. And I'll go on to explain the phenomenon after I've given you the right answer. I'm going back into my fizzy dram. It's a pleasant wee drink. Fizzy water. No shame in it whatsoever. Come on, everyone. How are we getting on? Glenlivet had a steam engine, if I recall correctly, says Dan. I think people are stuck with this one. Mikey A goes first. He says C or B. I'll go C. Angus C is saying phenomenon being the railway boom. C. Glenn B is saying I'll guess C. Too Slow is saying C. Falsgraph is saying A. Fernando, no idea at all on this one. Guessing B. Brilliant. So we're all over the place. The questions are getting harder. P-Head is saying what the heck. He's going for A. Ben is saying C. Ben Whiskey with Molly's going B. Daisy is going A. Discordia is saying C, but I seem to remember something about the founders. Pedro is saying C. All over the place. Okay, I just need to put you out your memory on this one. Okay. The father of the Longmorn Grants was called, I want to say Andrew Grant, but it's not. I feel like I've made a mistake now. But that was their name. Then the Glenlivet Grants, then the Grants, of course, were all part of the Glenlivet Distillers Company Limited. Hill Thomas was the fourth partner in the makeup. Now think of that. That's three different Grant families coming together to make that company that was going right up until 1978. And it didn't include the Grants of William Grant. And it didn't include the Grants of Glenfarclas. There were literally Grants right across Speyside. The Glenlivet Grants, the Longmorn Grants, the Glen Grant Grants, the Glenfarclas Grants, the William Grant Grants. It's incredible. So the answer to that was A. Three of the four original founders of the Glenlivet Distillers Company Limited were all called Grant. They were all Grants. Question 8. In 1889, which distillery, which is today a relatively modest 2 million litre capacity distillery, was once the largest of its time, reportedly producing almost double of their nearest rival? I kind of felt like when I put this question in tonight that I'd used it recently, but it wasn't scored off my wee question list. So if it's a duplicate, I apologise, and I apologise also for my failing memory. But in 1889, which distillery was twice the size of its nearest rival? A. Ben Nevis in the Western Highlands. B. Glengoyne in the Southern Highlands. C. Dufton in Speyside. Going back to 1889, of course. Petehead is saying, yes, you did it as a duplicate. 2 million litres in 1899, no, 1889, 10 years before that, Ben, but absolutely, yeah, it's surprising. But it's 2 million litres today, sorry, it's the way I've worded that question. Back in 1899, 1889, they would have been measuring when gallons metric system wasn't adopted yet, but regardless, this distillery was massive. That means that if it's a duplicate, most of you should get it. A dupe aqua vitae, although not exactly. Yeah, I've probably worded it a wee bit differently. I did feel like it might have come up in the past. Right, reread the question, says Ben. If you used this question yesterday, I still wouldn't remember it. Mikey, you and I can be pals. That's exactly how it's happened. That's exactly why it's here. Nanny was the name of the witch. Everyone, thank you. Nanny was the name of the witch in Tam O'Shanter. Everyone is saying, according to the wiki, the ship was named after Cutty Sark. The nickname of the witch, Nanny D, in Robert Burns' 1791 poem Tam O'Shanter, and she got that nickname because of her shortcut dress. Whiskey with Molly saying, got Phoebe's Ardnamurchan Golden Promise in the glass now. Oh, that's a good one, Ben. I hope you enjoy it. Nanny D, Sugar Kitty, thank you. I think I was saying Annie, wasn't I? I knew it was something similar. Okay, absolutely. If it's a dupe, you've all got it absolutely right. Almost a bit of a freebie for you all there. Everyone's saying A. Ben Nevis was once upon a time twice the size of its nearest neighbour in terms of malt production. Question 9, second from last. How are we doing for the scores? We've got an 8 out of 8 from Daisy, Mike Molasses. Whiskey with Molly, Ben slipped up a wee bit tonight on a 6 out of 8. Chris Pollack on a 7, 6 out of 8 for Pedro also. Wow, maybe it's harder than I thought. Dan DVDW on a 7, too slow on at 6. Fernando Ted Brooks both on 7. Nicholas is on an 8 though. Any other 8s as I scroll down, as I jump down? Might be tough tonight. Question 9, is it going to be easy or tough? What is Old Pulteney named after? What is Old Pulteney whiskey named after? The distillery it's made in, of course, Pulteney Distillery, and A, the town it's located in. B, the distillery it's made in, and a famous fishing vessel. Or C, the distillery it's made in, and the founder of the harbour of the town it's located in. Wow. Such horrible questions. So Old Pulteney is named after either not only its distillery, but the distillery in the town, the distillery in the famous fishing vessel, or the distillery and the founder of the harbour of the town is located in. Ben Damon Hunter saying, oh, I'll have some Old Pulteney tonight. Just got home. Ian Bruce is in. Good to see Ian. He's saying, kick myself for the grants. Knew it, but thought it was a trick. Oh, it's kind of a backwards trick then, I suppose. Sugar Kitty is on an 8 out of 8. Fantastic, Jeff. Good stuff from you. Bring me a herring, says Sugar Kitty. You love the history of it all and stuff, don't you? Technically also A, but C, no. The town it's located in, Ted. Discordia is saying C. Callum Renton is in. Good to see you, Callum. How you keep, my friend? He's saying currently drinking a 52.47. There are very few SMWS Old Pulteneys, and this one is great. Terrific. Callum, I hope it helps you answer this question. Old Pulteney was either named after not only its distillery, but the town it's located in. Famous fishing vessel, the founder of the harbour of the town it's located in. Remember the rules of the quiz at the end. If you feel I've been a bit cruel, you can take the point. Old Pulteney was founded in Old Pulteney town, which in 1906 was overtaken by the borough of Wick, the town of Wick. Old Pulteney town as a town in itself doesn't exist anymore, so Old Pulteney is located in Wick. There was no famous fishing vessel that I am aware of that was called Pulteney or Old Pulteney. It might have been, but that's not what it was named after. Regardless, it was named after the founder of the harbour of the town it's located in, originally called Pulteney Town. In 1906, it became part of Wick. It was built as a herring seaport, as a fishing seaport. The West Coast started to run out of herring, and they needed places on the East Coast to pick up herring. It was built to offer jobs, fishing jobs specifically, to people that were displaced throughout the Highland clearances of the 19th century. We do finish on an ASAT tonight. Is there anyone else hanging on with a 9 out of 9? Yes, there is indeed. Nicholas is sitting on a 9 out of 9. Fantastic. Daisy and Graham Fraser are both sitting with 9 out of 9, so we've got at least 3 anymore, along with Nicholas, Graham, and Daisy. Let's scroll down. Sugar Kitty Jeff is also on a 9 out of 9. Wow. Cats love herring. Might just be your night, Jeff. Let's see. The ASAT at the end is something, typically ASHATI. You have to know the answer to 2 different things. Based on the year of founding, how many new distilleries, that is distilleries founded since the year 2000, Scotch malt distilleries specifically, are 10 years or older in 2025? Where we sit just now, based on founding years, how many of the new distilleries have already reached that 10-year-old benchmark? Is it A, about the same number as the years of operation at Ardnahoe? Is it B, about the same number as the years of operation at Daffmill? Or is it C, about the same number as the years of operation at Lochranza? So we're using newish distilleries to answer a question about new distilleries. But I'm thinking about all the distilleries that have been founded since 2000, based on their founding years. How many of them have reached that 10-year benchmark? Same as the number of years at Ardnahoe, same as the number of years at Daffmill, or same as the number of years at Lochranza? Graham is saying good luck to his fellow 9 out of 9ers. Let's see who can take it home. We've got 3 or 4 of you on 9 out of 9. We've got Jeff. We've got Daisy. We've got Graham. We had one more, didn't we? Was it Nicholas? I think it was Nicholas that was on 9 out of 9 as well. Fastcraft is saying B, definitely not C. A maybe, but gut feeling. Following Peter Lee, says Ben, and going for A. Discordia is going for A. Petehead is going for B, along with Daisy with a B. Dan B. Danny Hebbington, still in at the end. Danny, good to have you. Still playing along, going for A. Fernando. Angus C going for B. Petehead going for B, Daisy B. Tobias and Nicholas B. Klitz A. Callum Renton is saying, so the question is, how many distilleries have been founded since 2015? Not quite, not exactly not that. Please don't answer that. We need something that has reached, well, I suppose it's another way to look at it. That's been founded previous to 2015, Callum. I suppose you could frame it that way. Absolutely. Okay. Everyone is... Oh no, they're starting to get some consensus on B. They've maybe flicked through the Malt Whisky Yearbook to try and work it out. I can tell you some numbers here. The number of years operation at Ardnahoe is 6 years. They've been going for 6 years now. I suppose that they started to cut ground in a year earlier, but 6 years of operation, that is distilling. Same for Daft Mill. They'll be 20 later this year, but right now they're 19. Years of operation at Lochranza, 2005, so they are 30 years this year. But in terms of founding year, the number of distilleries that can count 10 years or more is B, 19. You might want me to read these out to you. I am listing Glengyle, Kilchoman, Daftmill, Ailsa Bay, Avonjarrick, Annandale, Arbeki, Ardnamurchan, Ballindalach, Dalmunnock, Eden Mill, Glasgow, Harris and Sterney, Kingsbarns, Roseisle, Strathearn, Wolfburn, and Stirling. Daisy, I saw when you picked B, I saw you getting your 10 out of 10. Congratulations to you. Daisy has already got managed it. Mikey Hay just fell short with a 9 out of 10. Whisky with Molly Ben on an 8 tonight. Chris Pollock on a 9. Mike Molasses on an 8. Ben Demon Hunter on 5 for 7. Must have missed a couple. Come on, come on, come on. It's just jumped. Come on. Who else? Who else? Who else? Nicholas has managed an 10 out of 10 tonight. Congratulations, Nicholas. Brilliant stuff. It's always good when some people manage to scrape through till the end. Port Ellen. Well, I didn't include Port Ellen, buddy. I didn't include Brora. Those are resurrected distilleries. So it's not those don't. Those aren't included. Graham Fraser is on a 10. He managed these 10. And so did Jeff, so did Sugar Kitty. So the 4 people, Nicholas, Daisy, Sugar Kitty, Graham Fraser, any other 10 out of 10s? Fast graphing, that knife exists. I'm with Daisy, 10 out of 10. Take the knife glass, take it. Celebrate your 10. Fantastic, buddy, brilliant. And Daisy's great company to be with. Whisky with Molly Ben is saying, well done to the 10s. Any others? Have I missed anyone? I don't want to miss anyone. Congrats to the 10, says Fernando. Great stuff. Listen, thank you all so much for hanging out with me in the midst of a sticky, humid summer. I'm sorry, I removed myself there. In the midst of a sticky summer, when our whiskey consumption drops a wee bit, hey, our lives are distracted elsewhere and other things are going on with the lighter nights and things like that. However, apart from that kind of 6-week summer break, of course, right throughout summer, the vPub will still be here for you on a Thursday night. It's a pleasure for me to bring it to you. And occasionally, like I have done over the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe, occasionally attempt slightly geekier topics, but less to do with the geekiness of the kind of the chemistry and the production and but much more about trying to articulate why we enjoy this thing so much. Sometimes it's because of how it's made. Sometimes it's because of how it's enjoyed. But for me, whether it's with water or not, it's always about who it's enjoyed with. And I quite enjoy hanging out with you guys on a Thursday night. I hope you enjoy it too. Pedro is saying, thanks, Aqua Vitae and Barflies. Always great to tag along. Wonderful to have you here, buddy. Obrigado, as always. Petehead is saying, and with that, I'm calling it a day. Gonna hit the sack. Thanks as always for organising Aqua Vitae, and to all of you, see you next time. Slanjafa. Thank you, Frank. It was nice to be able to hang out with you for a wee while on Sunday. Frank was in the vPub forever, a short amount of time. It was nice to have an old friend stopping by again. Thank you, buddy. Hoyt is saying a good topic tonight. Hoyt, wonderful to have you in. I wonder if I've just picked up that you're in here tonight. Always a pleasure to welcome you here, buddy. Chris Pollack is saying, thanks for the diluted vPub. Just want to remind you, recycled review. I know it's very heavy on my shoulders, Chris. I need to find the time to get to it. Falscraft is saying, thanks, Aqua Vitae. It was a nice one again. Good night. Thank you, class. Peter Lee saying, great company. Vastly improves Whisky Aqua Vitae. Thanks for the birthday wishes. And Chris Pollack is saying, Dan is speaking to Chris Pollack and saying, Aqua Vitae, second those recycled reviews. I hear you all. Mike Molasses saying, cheers and good night. And Barflies, fun topic. Graham Fraser is saying, thanks, Roy. There's the water that makes the whiskey and the water that dilutes it. Aye, very, very different things. Dave the Brave is celebrating a 10 out of 10 as well. I love his wee icon. It's the perfect icon to celebrate a 10 out of 10 too. And Rob Too Slow is saying, great quiz, Aqua Vitae, and thanks, everybody. I'm going to raise this glass of whiskey with fizzy water in it as well. Don't judge me, please. But I look forward very much to hanging out with you all again next week for another wee vPub. And until then, I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved. Slan Shiva Barflies. Good night.